Hello, and welcome back to Zenin Fanfics. Today we're starting an exciting new series. What if Deku had powers of all devil fruits? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by CamDog2 on Wattpad. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now let's dive into the story. Name Izuku Midoriya, hero name. Quirk. Devil fruits allows him to use all existing devil fruits, canon, non-canon, fan-made. Like one for all cannot be stolen. Fighting style. 6 powers mastery of the 3 haki, a skilled marksman and swordsman for as long as he could remember. 4-year-old Izuku Midoriya has had strange dreams. Now in a superhuman society, people would think most children would have dreams of becoming a hero to the forces of evil and having insane and powerful quirk, and for the most part that it did. However, Izuku Midoriya dreamed of other things. He dreamed of men and women that could only be described as gods. Men and women who had powers that overpowered and overshadowed pretty much any quirk he had seen. He even saw some that could stop All Might. He saw people manipulating the elements. Saw men becoming mythical creatures, which granted had been done in quirks before, but not on a scale like this. And everything else that seemed to fall between. Izuku even dreamed a man who could be All Might's father. At first, Izuku tried to find out about them. Surely people this awesome had to exist, but no matter how much or what he searched on the internet, he couldn't find anything. However, the more he dreamed, the more excited he was to get his quirk. Izuku knew it would help him become the greatest hero in the world. Little did he know those dreams were more important than he could possibly image. The next day, "Come on, Ka-chan. You're being mean," Izuku said, trying to be brave and help a boy from being picked on. He was standing his ground, but was shaking and teary-eyed as he looked at the bully. "Shut up, Deku. You quirkless loser." One Katsuki Bakugo yelled at his former friend turned bully victim as explosions ignited in his hand. The two behind him just laughing and mocking. "No, I won't let you hurt Ka-chan. Picking on people are not how heroes act." Izuku tried to reason with Bakugo. Unfortunately, this led to only infuriate him. With explosions ignited in his hands, he rushed toward Deku, yelling Deku, ready to show that quirkless nobody where he belongs. Izuku braced himself for the pain, but in that moment, he had another vision. It went as soon as it came, and Izuku, despite everything logical, moved to copy the motion he saw in the vision as he crossed his arms, and then his fingers right as the explosion hit. Bakugo stood back, a smirk on his face, as he thought he finally showed the nerd his place. No one could imagine what happened next. As the other 2 bullies ran to get help for Bakugo, and the other boy ran away, no one noticed Izuku on his knees griping his head as the visions played on an infinite loop, until eventually he couldn't take it anymore and passed out. Inko POV Inko Midoriya was a nervous wreck as she waited for her son and for the doctors to be done examining him. She and Mitsuki were walking to the park to pick up their sons when they came upon the scene. When questioned, the bullies tried to put the whole blame on Izuku, but one look from Mitsuki and they came clean. When they heard the whole story, Inko immediately turned to Mitsuki to apologize, but Mitsuki just laughed it off and said the light punk deserved it. When Mitsuki left with her still unconscious son after promising to kick his, but later Inko immediately rushed her son to the emergency room to get him checked out. Now here, she was waiting for the news of when her son wakes up, and while she was extremely happy for her son to finally get his quirk, she just wished it had happened under better circumstances. After waiting for about 2 hours, the doctor came out. "Mississippi Midoriya, your son is awake." Relief instantly flooded Inko's system as she heard that. "Oh, thank God. May I see him?" The doctor smiled, of course. "He actually woke up an hour, but we wanted to take some tests about his quirk." Inko blinked. Test. From what she gathered from the story, she heard it was some kind of shield or barrier quirk. The doctor continued. "Ms. Midoriya, if our tests are correct, your son has the strongest and most versatile quirk to ever exist." Inko's eyes widened in shock. "What? I thought it was just a simple barrier quirk." Inko managed to get out. The doc was about to go on when a voice rang out. "Yes, I would like to hear about this young man as well." A jovial yet old voice was heard. The two turned, and their jaws dropped. This man was Mitsunsari Tokugawa, founder and president of the Battle Tower, the one place in the world people can use their quirks freely. It's the same as the one from Hunter x Hunter, except you still get money after floor 200. Mr. Tokugawa, what are you doing here? The doctor stuttered in shock that such a powerful MSN was in his office. Mitsunsari just grinned childishly. I was just visiting one of my top fighters when my nose caught wind of something. My quirk, you see, is that I can literally smell the potential of a fighter, and someone from the next room is flooded in it. The doc and Inko both gasped, but for different reasons. The doc in awe and Inko in horror. She had heard stories of what happened there and the kind of monsters that was there, and she didn't want her son anywhere near that place. Mitsunsari, seeing her reaction, was quick to explain. Ms. Midoriya, pleased with the power and potential your son has, nobody below the 100th floor could even touch him. Not to mention, all the money he would win for you. Not could would. The man spoke with complete honesty and confidence. Inko, seeing this, began to waver. Money was a bit of an issue, and if this man was that confident, Izuku could win. But she just wasn't sure. Izuku was only 4 years old for Kami's sake. The doctor, seeing her like this, decided to add the final nail in the coffin. As he pulled out some papers, Ms. Midoriya, he said, getting her attention. What I have here are the results of tests we ran and the capacities his quirk has shown so far. Inko took the list, and her eyes widened in awe. Mitsunsari, seeing this, just got more excited. He wanted this kid in his battle tower and was willingly to do just about anything to get. The doctor, seeing this, explained what he saw as the most amazing part of his mind. What truly amazes me is that he seems to have perfect control over these powers like he's had them for years. Inko could feel the last of her complaints die away. If Izuku can do all this, maybe, just maybe. Everyone's thoughts were cut off when they heard a voice from the other room. Please, Mom, I want to do. Izuku says as he runs out. Turns out he was listening the whole time. Mitsunsari grinned at seeing the young lad, so eager to get started. He decided to introduce himself. Hello, Izuku-kun. I'm Mitsunsari Tokugawa, and I've come to invite you to my tower. We're powerful people, like you could show the world how strong they truly are. Izuku was in awe at hearing this and really wanted to get started. It was as if his quirk awakening something in him. Nothing bad, but something unique. Izuku turned to his mother and asked with all the excitement he could muster, Please, Mom, let me do it. He spoke with hope in his voice. Inko, seeing his look, knew she wasn't going to be able to talk him out of it. But she was still confused about one thing. Izuku, how can your quirk do so much, and how are you so good with them? That was the one thing that's still confused about. My dreams, Mom. I've seen them in my dreams. Izuku answered happily, and Inko's eyes widened. She knew about the dreams her son had, and if he had even had a small fraction of those powers. Inko looked and saw the hopeful faces on Izuku, Mitsunsari, even the doctor. She looked at them and gave a simple nod, causing them all to cheer again, even the doctor. Mitsunsari turned happily to Izuku, with a wide smile on his face. Will Izuku-kun, welcome to my world, he exclaimed, extending his hand. Izuku nodding happily as he reached out and shook it. And for better or worse, the world was forever changed. 10 years. It's been 10 years since Izuku Midoriya discovered his quirk and started his training and fighting at the Battle Tower. After years of fighting, winning, and getting stronger, though he did get the SHD beat of him in the beginning, he was proud to say he was stronger than he thought he ever could be. That's where our story truly begins. Battle Tower top floor, the stands were packed. The roar of the crowd was deafening, all waiting for the main event of the night. There were usually about 5 to 7 fights a night, and depending on a fighter's strength and popularity determines when the fight. The main event is always the final fight, and that is always the champion match. Once a week, the champion must defend his title or surrender it to the challenger. And that's what we're here to see. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a hell of a night. The announcer exclaimed as he walked back on the stage after the stage was cleaned after the last match. But it's time to get to the main event. The real reason we are here. The championship match. The announcer roared, only to be surpassed in volume and intensity by the crowd. On the left, the challenger. He's broken hopes, dreams, and bodies on his way here. He's Gus the Ogre. He announced as Gus entered the ring. Gus was an 8-foot bald man, with his quirk being a mutation quirk that gave him 12 arms. 3 on his left, 3 on his right, and 6 on his back, with Gus grinning smugly and arrogantly. And in the right corner, the announcer began with the crowd letting out an almost deafening roar, and no one noticed Gus scowling. Your champion, Akuma. The announcer roared with the crowd as Akuma stepped into the light. Izuku Midoriya, or Akuma, just started at Gus with a bored, uninterested expression on his face, as if he had faced guys like him a million times before. Which he had. Gus, seeing this, group hissed and started his smack talk. And here I thought you would be to scared fight me. It would be far less painful for you, but too late now. Gus sneered as he looked at the teenager. I'll kill you. Then I'll beat you back to life, and then I'll kill you again. Guys yelled, as he wasn't going to be looked down on by some brat. Izuku merely looked on with a raised eyebrow, as that seemed to be Gus's breaking point as he started to turn red and foaming at the mouth. The announcer, seeing this, knew it was time to start the match. Are both fighters ready? After seeing them both nod, he continued, All right, beg dash. Before the announcer could finish, Gus rushed in front of Izuku, who could only sigh and close his eyes before the barrage began. The audience watched in shock as their champion was apparently being beaten without hesitation or fight. Gus was grinning, madly lost in his rage and lust as BLD splatters entered his vision as he rained down a volley of fists with such force it raised up a dust cloud around Izuku. Finally, after what seemed like hours, but was only 5 minutes, did the barrage and did the agonizing scream of pain enter everyone's ears. Only it didn't come from the dust cloud. Gus didn't know what happened. As he was calming himself down, he was confident he had just taken down the brat, when all of a sudden he felt an agonizing pain in all of his 12 hands. He was able to hold in the scream as he looked at his hands to see if his hands had been somehow broken like he thought. But as he looked down at his hands, his eyes widened in horror as he looked at the bloody stump of what was once his hands. This time he couldn't hold in the scream. As he was agonizing over the loss of his hands, he heard something that made him freeze. Good grief, if you're going to cheat, at least don't make it so obvious. A voice called out in a bored voice as the dust cleared in Gus's eyes as Izuku was standing there uninjured and covered in diamonds. Seeing the shocked look on Gus's face, Izuku signed. All right, my turn. Suddenly Izuku disappeared only to appear right in front of Gus and slammed his still diamond-covered fist into Gus's stomach, and with a sickening crack heard by all. Like a gunshot, Gus was blasted back into the wall, and as the announcer looked at him, all he had to see was the whites of Gus's. I didn't know he was out cold. It's over, the announcer proclaimed over the cheers of the audience. Akuma holds his title and throne for another day. Is there anyone who could possibly bring him down? Are you kidding? He's the strongest there is. Yeah, all hail the king. Akuma's never going down. As Izuku listened to the fans, he let a small smile appear. They might be annoying sometimes, but he was truly grateful for his fans. Later, Akuma, any thoughts on the fight tonight? Did you have a strategy going into this fight tonight? Anything to say on the rumors of you going into retirement? The media and newscasters, not so much. These people were like leeches, always looking for a scandal and ruining someone's life if it meant a scoop and a bonus. If he were on his own, Izuku was sure he would have ruined his reputation years ago. Luckily, he had someone great for dealing with stuff like this on his side. Oi, I thought I told all of you to get lost, said a low voice that was devoid of emotion, but had a hint of something dangerous. They all turned, and while the reporters all started to pale and sweat, Izuku hid a grin. This was Charlotte Amanda, his agent and manger. Izuku briefly thought back to the time he first met her and the shock of seeing her outside of vision. He also wondered at times who else could appear. As Izuku were having these thoughts, Amanda was taking care of the media. I thought I made it clear to you people we don't do sudden interviews. She drawled, taking a drag of her cigarette. Please, Amanda, you can't keep something like this away from us. An annoying, familiar voice as Amanda felt her eyebrow twitching when she turned and saw a familiar that was constantly annoying them. Her name was Rita something unimportant. She may have seen herself as a huge journalist, but she was nothing more a gossip who used her issues to ruin people's life. There was rumors about her using her quirk to help get the info, something about turning into a beetle or something. Something like what Rita, a 14-year-old boy, won a fight. Amanda asked, already annoyed with the journalist. Rita smiled that annoying smile of hers. A 14-year-old champion, Miss Charlotte. He's been a champion for 3 years now, and we still don't know his quirk. It's a secret hidden as well as All Might's quirk. Just because he don't want to go around showing of his quirk like a sugar-filled 4-year-old doesn't mean there's anything suspicious. Amanda countered snarky. There are also rumors going around that he has multiple quirks Rita started, which has been proven false many times over by doctors confirming it's all one quirk with a vast array of abilities. Amanda said, close to snapping at the reporter. Anything else? Well, there is one thing, Rita said, and the way she smiled made it clear she had finally got to the rumor she wanted to discuss. There have been rumors about you and your client in a less than professional manner. And with that, Amanda lost her patience and used her quirk. Charlotte Amanda quirk is petrification. For a certain amount of time, she can petrify anyone she looks at. How long they stay petrified depends on how close they are and how clear she can see them. So now that all the newscasters were frozen, she addresses the still on and live camera. People of the news world, I, Charlotte Amanda, Manger of Akuma, would like to say that once again all of those rumors are false and have no real merit. Thank you, and have a good night. With that, she turned off the camera and walked toward the door, motioning for Izuku to follow. Izuku, who had been staying silent, followed after her without a word. Only when outside and in the limo did the two allow themselves to relax. Izuku turned his manger as the limbo began to move. You tell me time and time again not to do anything rash with the media, yet you seem to make a sport of it. Izuku said with a smirk. Amanda gave a huff as she exhaled smoke. Don't be stupid. Most of those reporters are flies. That Rita woman is the only one that pisses me off, getting involved in matters and rumors that she has no business being in. She finished with a wave of dismal. Even when some of those rumors are true. Izuku asked, a smirk still on his face, a smirk Amanda copied, especially them. She confirmed as they leaned in to kiss. The next day, Midoriya. Saw your fight last night. You are the man. You gotta let me spar with you, Midoriya. I've got some new moves you gotta see. Izuku-kun, let's go out on a date after school today. Izuku sighed in annoyance as he walked through his metal school hall toward his homeroom. No matter where he went, there was no end to this. And unlike the media, he had no to run interference for him and had to deal with everything on his own didn't help his already short temper. Ignoring the comments and requests, dating or otherwise, he arrived at his homeroom door and mentally prepared for his daily headache. When ready, he opened the door a couple inches. Deku, and immediately slammed it shut, just as the annoyance slammed into the door, effectively breaking the door into pieces and knocking themselves out, and revealing himself to be Bakugo Katsuki, who, after learning what happened in the park that day, set out to prove he was still better, only to grow angrier and angrier the more powers Izuku seemed to help. The tipping point was when Izuku showed he had a just as strong, if not stronger version than Bakugo's quirk. I'm dead serious, look up the Nito Nomi. The teacher just sighed, used to this. At first he tried to stop it, but eventually gave up and considered it a part of daily life. Someone guard Bakugo and put him in his desk. Midoriya fixed the door. Midoriya rolled his eyes, muttered a good grief, and started to glow as he uttered crazy diamond. As a humanoid appeared behind him faster than the human, I could see a barrage of punches at the remains of the door and fixed it. Izuku allowed himself a smirk as Crazy Diamond disappeared. Gotta love the stand fruit. He thought as the school day began. Later that day, school had been dismissed, and after dealing with the usual mob coming up to him with the usual, talking about the match, date request, quirk advice, etc., he finally managed to get away. Izuku had just walked under a bridge when he came to a stop as the sewer main hole cover started to violently shake as a second later, what could only be described as slime with a voice erupted from the hole and moved frantically as if looking for his, and when its eyes landed on Izuku, a sickening grin appeared on the slime's face. What would we have here? The famous Akuma, oh, with your body and quirk, I'll definitely kill him. Now hold still. It'll all be over in 45 seconds. And with that, it lunged, ready to take the champ's body as its own, only to be met with a prison of wind sucking him in to a giant sphere of wind. Think water prison from Naruto, expect made of wind. Izuku looked at the slime with a small amount of interest when a voice came from the manhole. Have no fear. Why? Because I am here. It exclaimed as a figure appeared from the manhole and turned out to be the #1 hero, All Might. Do not worry, citizen. You are All Might trailed off, seeing the sludge villain he had been chasing trapped by someone who could be recognized just as easy as him. Izuku, seeing his once hero and inspiration appear in front of him, could only look at the sludge villain and say one thing: you're late. As the two started each other down, they both had thoughts of the other. Izuku's thoughts as he looked at the #1 hero were mixed. Years ago, he would be a quivering, shaking mess, stuttering while asking for an autograph. Now, though he was entirely indifferent to him, while Izuku did respect the hero's strength and ideals, he did find the era of peace that All Might fragile, as if someone were able to bring the symbol of peace down. The peace he created would go with him. Meanwhile, Toshinori Yagi aka All Might also had thoughts on the young champion. When he had first heard of a young child using multiple quirks and quickly rising in Floor's Arc Tower, All Might just laughed and waved it off, assuming it was losers just trying to fix their broken pride. But after seeing a clip shown him on a talk show, did he start to have doubts? Turning his body into weapons, controlling gravity, becoming and controlling the elements. Hell, Toshinori even saw the young man turn into a dragon. Dragon. A few heroes were looking at Ryukyu, but then quickly looked away when they caught the glare she was sending them. After seeing that, he couldn't help but feel suspicious of who this young man was, and if there was a connection between him and his archenemy All For One. When All Might brought this to his old teacher, Gran Torino, who was doubtful at first, agreed to look into it. When Toshinori found out that despite having a vast array of abilities, which he didn't feel the need to know, that it was all one quirk, he was more than a little relieved and was quick to assure the staff that nothing was wrong and quickly swore them to secrecy to avoid giving the young man trouble in future. After that, All Might mentally wished the child luck, while every once in a while catching one of the young man's fights on the TV. All Might was broad of his musings when he heard Izuku clear his thoughts. So what's the plan for this thing? Izuku questioned while gesturing to the slime still stuck in the wind prison. All Might simply laughed and brought out a couple of empty plastic bottles. We can simply put him in these. Waste on one not after all. All Might continued to laugh until he noticed the flat, unimpressed look from the teen and ended in an awkward chuckle. After a few minutes of getting the slime in the bottles, Izuku turned to leave. Well, that's that. See you around, All Might. Izuku spoke, walking away, waving over his shoulder as he did so. Of course, young man. All Might spoke enthusiastically. With a quirk like yours, you're bound to be a great hero, even with its funny name. Devil Fruits. Now that's a weird one. All Might laughed, not noticing Izuku stopping dead. As soon as he heard this, Izuku stopped cold and slowly turned around. No one outside him, his mother or Amanda, knew the name of his quirk. Amanda made sure of it. So how did All Might, #1 hero, or not know it? How do you know my quirk's name? Izuku growled as he approached All Might. There are only 2 other people who should know its name, and you're not one of them, so talk. All Might, having realized his mistake, tried to correct it. Sissikum. Now, young Midoriya, I'm sure you've dropped its name at least once by now. All Might insisted nervously. Izuku merely narrowed his eyes. No. I've been sure never to come close to saying it, so spill what you know or else. Izuku threatened. All Might was slowly backing away, trying to think of a way out of this, when he noticed steam coming off his body. SHD. I'm out of time. All Might thought frantically. Sorry, young man, got to go. Places to be, and all that. He finished quickly before leaping into air. Izuku ran to where All Might had been standing and cursed, seeing him get away. The teen was about to give chase when he noticed one of the bottles containing the sludge villain on the ground. Good grief, he sighed, picking up the bottle. Guess I have another reason to go after him. Good thing devil fruits aren't the only thing I got from memories. Izuku said to himself as he activated his haki to find All Might. Finding his energy, which was weaker than Izuku expected, he made sure to hold on to the bottle, and using the power of the fruit took off after him. With All Might, what the hell was I thinking? Toshinori scolded himself as he rested in his deflated form. Of course he would be suspicious that I would now his Quirk's name. How could I be that careless? Toshinori sighed to himself. There was no helping it now, and he still had to take the villain to the police. Getting up, and patting off the notice, he noticed that he felt the weight a little off. All Might's eyes widened when he noticed that one of the bottles containing the villain. Where is it? Where is it? Toshinori thought frantically, searching his pockets, and ground around in hopes of finding the bottle. Not finding it, he tried to remember the last place he saw it, which was Dash. Toshinori's eyes widened when he remembered it was when he was talking to young Midoriya. Just as he was about to head back, he heard a voice. Good grief, this is becoming more trouble than it's worth. Spinning around, All Might came face to face with Izuku Midoriya with that same look of suspicion, but now it had a look of confusion. Shaking out of his thoughts, he quickly spoke to the teen. Wait a minute, please, young Midoriya. I know you have questions, but right now we have bigger problems. I lost one of the bottles that held villain, and we need to find... All Might's words died in his mouth as Izuku brought up the missing bottle with the villain still inside. Now that I've saved you some work, I think you owe me some answers. Izuku finished having enough CRP for the day. All Might stared at the teen in front of him and sighed. All right, but please, I'm begging, do not reveal this information to anyone. Hearing the desperation and pleading in the hero's voice, Izuku nodded. All Might seeing this sighed and spoke. All right, it all began with a man called All for One. Later, so what you're telling me is that you thought I was connected to an old enemy of yours named All for One, who not only has a quirk that can steal quirks, but also gave you that crippling injury 5 years ago. Izuku questioned, trying to wrap his mind around the ridiculous story he was just told. All Might could only nod. Well, he didn't tell the young man everything, like about the origin of his quirk or his MSTR. He did tell him about All for One and what happened between them. Izuku said nothing as he took in what he was told, until he finally spoke. May I see your injury again? Izuku requested as he approached the man. Ah, sure, but why young Midoriya? He questioned while showing Izuku the wound, who crouched down to inspect it again. Because I think I might be able to heal it, Izuku said while standing up. Toshinori had a shocked and disbelieving look on his face. Young man, that's impossible. I've lost several organs through surgeries. There's nothing that can be done. Well, what do you have to lose? Izuku questioned with an arched eyebrow. Toshinori, not having a response, merely nodded. With that, Izuku summoned Crazy Diamond and, ignoring All Might's startled gasp, used it to heal All Might. All Might gasped as he felt his organs return, though he freaked out when the spectate moved its fist into his wound. But before he could even cry in shock, he was being healed. After this was done, Izuku had turned to leave when he was suddenly embraced in a massive hug from a beyond grateful and elated All Might. Thank you, young Midoriya. I couldn't ask for more. All Might shouted. Izuku just nodded. Don't worry about it. Checking his watch and noticing the time, he turned to the hero. Look, I've got to go. I see you later. After he turned to leave, All Might just laughed and nodded. Of course, young Midoriya, again, thank you for everything. Izuku nodded and was just about to leave when a thought hit him. Turning to the hero, Izuku asked, Hey, if All for One could steal quirks with just a touch, why couldn't he steal yours? Izuku questioned. Caught off guard, Toshinori laughed nervously. I guess my quirk can't be stolen or copied. Weird, huh? He questioned, still laughing nervously. Izuku just chuckled. I guess that makes two of us then. Izuku asked, not noticing All Might's got stock still. Noticing his look, Izuku explained, In the past I've faced fighters who could copy and steal certain aspects of quirks, but it's never worked on me. Lucky, huh? Noticing All Might still frozen, Izuku once again activated the fruit and took off. Before he could leave, however, he heard a cry of wait. Izuku looked down and saw All Might waving at him frantically. Is that true? Can your quirk really not be stolen or copied? All Might questioned frantically, but also hopefully. If that was true, then he might have finally found the one he was searching for. Izuku merely shrugged. As far as I know, look, I really need to go. Izuku turned to leave. Wait. What is it now? I don't have the time, I have to go. Look, tomorrow I'll be at Dagoba Beach tomorrow. If you still have questions, then you can ask them there. But I have an offer for you. Then you can ask it tomorrow. And with no further ado, Izuku flew off. Meanwhile, All Might stood there flabbergasted before shaking it off. He needed to get the slime to jail and see if what Izuku said was true. Next day, Dagoba Beach, it was just a little past noon when All Might had come upon the beach. All Might had been wondering why the young champion would be here. As he heard, it was an unfortunate sight for illegal garbage dumping and what the young man could possibly want from there. He was brought out of his thoughts when he heard a rumbling, and his eyes widened in shock as some of the mountains of garage started to rise in the air. His jaw dropped as the mountains of trash were then crushed into the shapes of ball before out of nowhere lighting vaporized them. He was brought out of his thoughts when a voice addressed him. I'm surprised you actually came. That offer must be an interesting one. Izuku spoke coming into view. He was dressed in his battle tower outfit without the jacket and hat. Young Midoriya, was that you just now? All Might questioned with Izuku nodding. Yup, got a permit from the government to do it. They get the beach clean, and I got extra training. Izuku spoke, answering the question that was on All Might's question. Izuku then got to the matter at hand. So what did you want? He questioned. All Might nodded. This just added to the list of good reasons. He just needed to know one more thing. Before that, do you mind if I ask one question? Izuku raised an eyebrow, but shrugged. Why not? Have you ever considered being a hero? All Might questioned, and Izuku was momentarily stunned by the question before shaking it off and actually letting out a little laugh. At All Might's questioning look, he answered, I'm sorry, it's just that you of all people asking me that brought back memories and I couldn't help but laugh. Izuku said, while continuing to chuckle. Oh, and why would that be? All Might asked curiously as Izuku finished chuckling. You see, before I got my quirk, I wanted two things. The first was a powerful and cool quirk, which as you can see, I was lucky enough to get. Izuku said with All Might letting a little chuckle. And the second? All Might questioned. Izuku sighed as he answered. The second was that I wanted to be a hero like my idol, you. He admitted with All Might looking shocked. Yeah, I was actually a real fanboy and everything. Bought all your merch, watched the clips, and everything. Izuku admitted, but after I got my quirk and started fighting in the tower, I saw and learned the world isn't so black and white. There were less than noble heroes in the world, just as there are people in the tower that have more humanity than some of the heroes out there. So yes, I once dreamed of being a hero, but I'm not sure I can be anymore. Izuku finished his trip down memory lane. You can, Toshinori muttered, and when Izuku turned to him, he continued. You could be a hero. You have a mindset, quirk, and experience. You would make a great hero. You think so? Izuku asked, a little shocked. All Might said that about him. I'm sure of it. Toshinori spoke without a hint of doubt. Just as I'm sure that you're the one to inherit my quirk. That last thing made Izuku blink in shock. Did All Might just say? What do you mean inherit your quirk? Izuku questioned with Toshinori sighing. Yesterday, I didn't tell you everything. Let me fix it by revealing the truth and history of my quirk. The quirk called One for All. And with that, All Might began his tale of One for All origins, and its first user being the brother of All for One, explaining that how it's a quirk that passes from user to user, getting stronger with each user. Thought he was quick to explain that it doesn't pass the user's original quirk. Just that One for All grew stronger with each user. Izuku didn't say anything after All Might was finished speaking, processing everything he just heard. He just had a one question, why me? He questioned. Surely you had other choices before me. So why go with a guy you've only known from a few days? That was the one thing holding him back from accepting the deal. All Might took a moment to gather his thoughts before speaking. You are correct in that there is someone else I was considering. He was truly what I was looking for. He was optimistic, clever. Hell, he even trained what seemed like a useless quirk into something amazing. Toshinori said, while smiling, remembering Mirio and how far he had come. So what changed? Izuku questioned. He sounds like the man for the job. All Might nodded. He was, however, you have something he lacks. Your vision of the world isn't clouded. Mirio, like many in the world, was blinded by this era I unknowingly created, and while he truly is worthy, I believe you would be better for it, as you have seen the world without rose-colored glasses. Izuku was silent as he thought over everything that All Might told him. Did he truly want this to still be a hero? You're sure? He questioned the symbol of peace, who nodded. I guess it wouldn't be too bad. I mean, I know you. A policy, and they do allow for students to fight in the tower as long as they keep their grades up. All Might nodded as many students and pro-heroes use the tower to train. Thinking it over, Izuku could help but smile, guess his childhood dream hasn't died just yet. Oh, what the hell? What do I have to lose? I'll do it, All Might, he said, giving All Might his answer. I mean, it's not like he's instantly going to regret that his. Tashinori was all smiles and couldn't help but go into his buff form. Yes, young Midoriya was thank you. Now, there's only one thing left to do, he said as he plucked a hair from his head. Now eat this and inherit my power. He bellowed. Izuku's face was hard as stone. I instantly regret this. It had been about 6 months since Izuku had gained the power of One for All, and had been training with All Might to control it. Currently, he had control over about 40%, but he had to be careful when he combines it with one of his powers. It was set to be a normal morning training with All Might when his haki picked up something and snapping his head in the direction before running in that direction. Tashinori, seeing his successor suddenly take off, surprised him for a while before chasing after him. When he caught up, All Might was greeted with the sight of 3 thugs knocked out cold, with Izuku trying to calm down a young girl. Young Midoriya, what happened here? All Might demeaned, wanting to know why Izuku would do this. Izuku, after calming the young girl down, looked at All Might. When I felt something malicious enter the area of my haki, I used the glare fruit to see what it was and saw these BSDRDS holding her to the ground. The rest, I'm pretty sure you can guess what happened. After hearing that, All Might glared harshly at the thugs, disgusted that they would do that to anyone, a child no less. To think acts like this are preformed in this day and age. All Might growled before turning his attention to the little girl and speaking softly. I'm so sorry, miss. No one should have to go through that, especially a child. All Might told her, trying to help her, any for her to say nothing. All Might, seeing her not speaking to him, turned to his successor and gave him a look of, well, your turn, to which Izuku could only sigh. He wasn't good with children, damn it. Hey, he spoke, getting her attention. Could you tell us your name? Izuku asked softly, and when it seemed she wouldn't respond, was about to ask again, when he heard a soft and quiet Eri. Izuku nodded, glad to finally be getting somewhere. Now, Eri, could you please tell us why these punks were chasing you? He asked while also stopping himself from swearing in front of child. At this, Eri only grew a lock of pure terror before grabbing onto him with an iron grip and shaking her head rapidly. At this, the two could only sigh and look at each other. Well, young Midoriya, any ideas? All Might asked completely at last. The young champ nodded and walked toward the thugs. About a way to get the info out of them without even waking them up. Using the memo fruit, he pulled the memory film from the punks while ignoring the surprised grasp from Eri, Izuku, and All Might took a look and didn't like what they saw a single bit. Quirk destroying bullets, something that sounds so simple but can destroy their society and throw it into chaos. Izuku and All Might looked at each other. They couldn't let this happen, but that begs the question, what did this have to do with Eri? Eri, having remained silent this whole town, was keeping her eyes on the ground. Eri, she looked up to see Izuku in front of her. If it's too painful, you don't have to tell us, but we need that information. So please, will you let? He questioned while gesturing to the grunts. Eri didn't say anything for a moment, and just as Izuku was about to ask again, she nodded slowly. With a quick thank you, he gently extracted the memories from the young girl, and along with All Might took a look, and after finishing it, took everything the two had to keep themselves from rampaging. This girl had been killed before. Hundreds, if not thousands of times. That's how they're creating the Quirk destruction bullets, all orchestrated by a germaphobe with delusions of grandeur. All Might could never remember a time he was this angry, even when his MSTR had been killed, because whereas that was a hero doing what was right, this was a child being killed and abused. As All Might was trying to get his anger under control, he heard what could only be described as scribbling, and he turned to see Izuku writing something in a little notebook. Izuku, seeing All Might's questioning look, showed him what he was writhing. There's a lot of this BSDRD has to pay for. So I figured I'd start writing a bill, just to make sure. Sure enough, Izuku had written down a list of everything Kai Chisaki, otherwise known as Overhaul, had done. All Might was in complete agreement. Yes, with all this information, we can hit him as early as tonight. I just have to get this to the police and then assemble a small team of heroes to help with Overhaul's 8 deaths, while I deal with Overhaul myself, Izuku interrupted. With my Logia abilities, his Quirk would be useless. Izuku explained, with All Might nodded at both points. While it wasn't common, well-known fighters from the towers have been deputized for certain fights or operations they could be useful in. So if the #1 hero recruited the world champion from the battle tower to stop a plot that could destroy Quirk society, no one would think twice. Well, that only leaves on last issue. What do we do with young Eri after this is over? All Might questioned, knowing it could be hard for her once people learn about her. Eri froze hearing this and started shaking. Izuku, seeing only, sighed, "Good grief, why doesn't she stay with me and Mother?" All Might and Eri looked at him in shock, and again Izuku sighed. "What's the big deal? She's gonna need a place to stay, and I can tell my mother would love her." Eri was shaking and had desperation and hope in her eyes as she asked, "Oh, really, I can live with you?" Izuku looked at her and nodded. Eri broke down crying and leapt into the arms of one of the only people to ever be kind to her and blabber out thank yous, while All Might grinned happily in the background. And young Midoriya said he wasn't good with kids. A thought suddenly came to All Might. "Young Midoriya, what should we do with her until this is over?" Overhaul might send people after her. He asked, concerned. Izuku didn't even blink as he held Eri, who had fallen asleep after everything that happened. "I was thinking of putting her along with my mother in my room on the 200th floor of the battle tower. That way, even if they do discover where she was, they'd have to fight against some of the toughest fighters there." All Might's shoulders shagged in relief. "Well, that takes care of that. I'm off to start my end. I'll contact you tonight when it's ready." Izuku nodded, and both left to prepare for the night. Later that night, Izuku, fully decked out in his fighter clothes, was flying to the meet-up spot. All Might did as he promised, and now police and heroes were ready to help with both forces, knowing of his involvement. As he was flying, he thought back to how his mother took the news of everything, including the new addition to their family. The best he could describe, it was a long-lost parent and child being reunited, and it admittedly brought a smile to his face, though that was replaced with an annoyed frown when Inko told Eri not to do anything that could cause her to stress eat like a certain heartless son she knew. After that, Izuku got both of them to his room in the tower and made sure a few of his friends were watch out for anything, which after hearing the circumstances they were more than happy to do. Finally, he got to the spot and landed while looking around. There were what looked like 200 police, as well as several pro heroes such as Death Arms, Kemui Woods, Beast Genist, Gang Orchidash. "Oh my god, you're actually here." A feminine voice screamed as he felt some slam into him. Looking down, Izuku saw who had hit him. "My name is Mount Lady, and I'm your biggest fan. I've seen all your fights," and she was cut off from her speech by Kemui Woods, who had pulled her off. "Izuku, calm down, rookie. Now is not that time to act like a love-sick schoolgirl." He shouted at Mount Lady, who pouted and looked away. Kemui sighed and turned to Izuku. "Sorry about that, Akuma. She promised she would behave herself." Izuku only smiled and waved it off. "It's fine, I'm glad we have her power, and I'm sure she'll be a great help. I sure will be so SCK at Woods." Kemui could only grumble as All Might arrived and brought everyone to attention. "Heroes, thank you all for coming. As we all know, the men in this factory have been threatening the society we know today. The leader, Kai Chisaki, aka Overhaul, is trying to revert the world back into the time before Quirks and take over. That's why we are here, to destroy the factory and capture everyone involved. The police will deal with the common thugs. Heroes, our jobs are to take down the 8 precepts of death. And finally, because he possesses skills that can make Overhaul's Quirk meaningless, Akuma will deal with Overhaul." Everyone nodded, while Izuku was busy looking for Overhaul with observation hockey and eventually finding him in the very back. Once he did, he nodded to All Might. All Might, seeing this, turned, "Let's go." Texas Smash. As soon as the attack hit, Izuku wasted no time and shot through the hole as sounds of confusion were heard, and then the sounds of battle. Half a minute later, he had arrived in front of the door where Chisaki was. Without any more prompting, Izuku slammed his fist into the door, sending it flying off its hinges, where a sound of alarmed confusion was cut off before the door slammed into it, and then the wall. Without missing a beat, Izuku used the string fruit to hoist the man he knew to be overhaul in a way he couldn't use his quirk. Izuku finally got a good look, and aside from the bruises he got earlier, he looked like the man Izuku saw in Aries' memories, with his bird mask broken and lying on the floor. Who the hell? Chisaki began angrily, only to be cut off by a diamond-encrusted hand to the jaw. Shut up. I have no interest in what you have to say. I'm only interested in you pay. Pay what? Chisaki demanded. Izuku smirked. Your bill. Later, the plan has been a complete success. Everyone captured, all Quirk killer destroyed. Luckily, he was able to get away before the news showed up, but he was annoyed when All Might to him, he made sure the news knew of his involvement. That annoyed Izuku, which got a big laugh out of All Might. However, Izuku couldn't be that annoyed. He got to take down a villain, work with heroes before his you. A test, and even got a new little sister out of it. Not a bad day, all things considered. The day had finally arrived. After spending the last 4 months training, fighting, getting to know his new little sister, and taking Amanda out on a few dates, the U.A. entrance exam has arrived. Now here Izuku was standing at the entrance of the school in simple sweats. With a simple sigh, he began to walk toward the building, and it wasn't long until he heard an annoyance behind him. Deku. What the hell are you doing here, you loser? Bakugo screamed from behind him, enraged he would see the loser here. Izuku just raised an eyebrow. Why else would I be here? Just as Bakugo was about to yell again, Izuku bent down and gave him a glare. Do you really want to start something here? Izuku questioned, with Bakugo not being able to do anything but storm off with Izuku watching. Good grief. Izuku sighed as he continued to walk toward the exam hall. Later in the exam hall, Izuku was able to find a seat at the very back to avoid getting noticed. Though he was spotted and recognized by a few, he was able to get away before anyone could stop him after waiting for a while. Pro Hero Present Mic came out. What up, what up? How's everyone doing tonight? He proceeded to turn to the audience with his hand to his ear to hear the response he was sure receive. Pure silence. That's all he was able to get. It was so bad Izuku almost gave him a pity clap. Almost completely undeterred, Mike continued. Now, ITS time, TO, get down to business. You'll be facing a series of robots worth a series of points. However, even though there's a select number of robots, friendly fire is forbidden and will result in immediate disqualification. Bakugo won't like that, Izuku thought. Suddenly, a student from the middle row stood up with his hand in the air. Excuse me, sir, but I have a question. He questioned while moving his arms in a robotic fashion. Yes, what is your question, applicant dash? Tenya Ida, sir. Now you have shown 3 different robots on the screen when there are clearly 4 on the information sheet. How could an institution as prestigious as you allow this? He questioned and then suddenly turned behind him and faced Bakugo. As for you, stop swearing under your breath. Such crude behavior does not belong here. Ida exclaimed, all the while continuing his robotic movements. What the hell did you say, you shitty dash? Excellent question, applicant. Present might cut him off before things get out of hand. The last robot is worth 0 points, meaning it's worth nothing and should be avoided at all cost. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Ida exclaimed while bowing before seating down. After that, Izuku was handed his exam card, went to his exam destination. Exam site. Izuku was standing around waiting for the exam to begin when he noticed something. It was a round-faced girl with rosy cheeks trying to calm herself down. Izuku seen the look on her face many times before when he was starting out in the tower, wearing it himself many times. So he went up and started to talk to her. You really do need to calm down and think straight, he told her calmly. When she turned, she gasped when she saw him early recognizing him. The best thing you can do right now is take some deep breaths and clear your head so you can be ready to take on whatever the test is, Izuku explained to her, while also knowing others were listening. The girl looked at him for a second before nodding and breathing deeply a few times, causing Izuku to smile. Suddenly present Mick's voice blasted out for everyone to hear. Now, is everyone ready? Go! Surprising everyone except Izuku, who took off immediately. Seeing everyone's surprised looks present, Mike laughed and said, "What? You think this was going to be a normal test? Here at you. You're going to have to go beyond like that kid there." Present Mike exclaimed while everyone noticed Izuku and immediately ran to catch up with him. Meanwhile, Izuku was using the float fruit along with the glint to snipe from the air. Soon he landed into the center of a street, and looking around, noticing he was surrounded by robots from the north, south, east, and west, and they were closing in. Good grief, Izuku muttered before suddenly 3 more Izukus suddenly appeared, and each of the 4 faced a separate direction. The original coated his arm in fire and faced the north. The second costed his hand in a sphere or air and faced the east. The third covered his leg in light and faced the south, and the final morphed his arm into a Gatling gun and faced the west. With that, the attacks were unleashed. The robots in the north were incinerated upon contact with the fire. The east were shredded to nothing or blown by the air. The south were caught in the explosions caused by the light speed kick. And the west were shredded by the hail of bullets or by the explosions caused bomb fruit and powered bullets. Looking around and seeing the robots destroyed, he dismissed the clones and went to look for more. Monitoring both, did you see that? He completely destroyed those like they were nothing. I mean, I know he's the champ, but that's amazing. 13, the space hero exclaimed. They knew the young man was strong, but that just blew them out of the water. It's not just his power. Principal Nizu, a small animal hybrid, said. He's also helping out other applicants when they need it. He said, happy to not just have another brawler. Everyone agreed. Even a tired-looking man in the back looked agreed. Strong, handsome, and noble, everything a woman wants in a man, said the 18-plus hero. Midnight said, while staring at Izuku. Plus the things I could do with those clones. She trailed off while licking her lips. The tired-looking man at her dryly. You know he's 15, right? I can wait. Exam field. Well, that should just about do it, Izuku said while looking around, when suddenly a ton of examines ran past him. Wondering what the big deal, he looked, and his eyes widened a bit when he saw the gigantic zero-pointer. Deciding it wasn't worth dealing with a zero-pointer, he was about to head into an ally way when he heard help. Izuku's head snapped around and saw the girl he talked to early pinned under rubble with the zero-pointer headed straight toward her. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, Izuku morphed his left hand into a blade while his right hand held a blue sphere that expanded as he said room. Ochako Uraraka didn't know what happened. She had been pinned and was about to be crushed. She had closed her eyes and waited for the end, when suddenly the weight off her back was gone and the zero-pointer didn't sound as close. When she opened her eyes, she was shocked. Akuma, the one who helped calm her down and secretly inspired her when she was a kid, was standing where she had been, his arm transformed into a blade and ready to fight. But that's not what shocked her. The buildings around and the robot had been completely and cleanly cut in half. Seeing the hunk of scrap metal down, he turned and walked toward the girl. You okay? He questioned, to which all she could do was nod. He was about to make sure when he saw a recovery girl show up. Knowing she was probably in good hands, he revived all the information about when to expect his results and left. 1 week later, Izuku had been waiting patiently for his results while Inko and Eri scrabbled for their home's mailbox whenever it showed up, until one day, Izuku, they're here. Your test results are here. Inko and Eri scrambled in on their hands and knees for some reason. Thanks, Izuku said dully while taking the envelope to his room and shutting the door. Setting down, he took out the projector and started the message with All Might appearing. It is I here as a recording. Sorry I haven't been able in contact the past week I've been. What, hurry it up. I'm about to do how many of these? All Might questioned with Izuku, rolling his eyes. Now on to your results. You earned 70 rescue points and 150 villain points. With a combined score of 220 points, you have not only become the freshman representative, you have shattered the previous record. Congratulations, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. And as Izuku sat there, He could hear the cheers from Inko and Eri, who had been listening to through the door. He could only think what was coming next. Well, it's time, Izuku thought as he made his was to the door. It was the first day of his time at UA, and Izuku was pretty even on the subject. His mother and sister, on the other hand, babies living his dream. I am so happy. Big Brother's going to be the greatest hero ever. We're more enthusiastic at the prospect. Izuku just rolled his eyes and said goodbye as he left out the door, the two never noticing as they were still celebrating. It wasn't long before he was standing outside the door to his new classroom, having been noticed many times, students having started in shock at seeing him there, but ignoring them easily, having long gotten used to it. Well, no turning back now, Izuku thought before sliding the door open. Get your feet off that desk immediately. The hell did you say to me, you four-eyed bastard? And promptly slammed the door shut. Izuku took a deep breath before trying again and opening the door. Apparently the two had come to an agreement, as the man talking to Bakugo introduced himself as Tenya Ida before spotting Izuku and walking toward him, and he wasn't the only one. Hello, I am Tenya Ida, and I'm happy to see you actually decided to attend. I heard some pretty unsettling rumors about you, Tenya said with his usual robotic movements before holding out his hand. Izuku, Midoriya, Izuku said while taking and shaking his hand. And what do you mean rumors? Izuku questioned, and just as Ida opened his mouth, he was pushed into the wall, and Izuku found himself swarmed. I can't believe you're actually here, dude. A red-headed, spiky-haired student exclaimed. My name's Eijiro Kirishima, and we've got to spar later. I've been wanting to fight you for years. He said before a pink-skinned girl suddenly jumped on top of him. Hi, I'm Mina Ishido, and you got any plans later? She questioned. As this was going on, two students were watching from their seats. One was Bakugo, who was pissed at Izuku taking what he thought was his spot as the top dog of the class. The other was a boy who had half his hair white and the other half red. With a scar on the left side of his face, he was glaring at Izuku in a challenging manner. Back with Izuku, he was about to finally respond to the wave of chatter, when suddenly his observation haki sprang to life, and his head jerked to the door. What's wrong, Midoriya? Uraraka questioned, having just entered the classroom. Izuku just pointed to the door, and everyone's head turned to the door and saw a rather odd sight. It was a tired and scraggy-looking man and completely concealed in yellow sleeping bag with only his face and part of his hair sticking out. If you're looking to make friends or are that easily starstruck, then you can leave now. We don't have to for such things. The man said before taking out a juice box and downing it in a single gulp, leaving everyone, including Izuku, at a loss. It took you 8 seconds to settle down, and that was only after one of you pointed me out, and considering the reputation of that one, it was he could do. He said before walking to the front. I'm Shota Aizawa, and I'm your homeroom teacher. Now, go get your PE uniforms on and meet me at the training field. Aizawa said before leaving without a word, causing the class to look at each other questioningly before doing just as their teacher ordered. Later, a Quirk evaluation test. What about orientation? Achiko questioned as Aizawa explained. We only have a short time to prepare you for the life of a hero, and as such don't have time for such things. So we're going to have 8 different tests to see where you all stand. Aizawa explained before facing Izuku. Midoriya, you scored first in the entrance exam. How far could you throw the ball in middle school? Aizawa questioned. About 80 meters. He answered with Aizawa handing him the ball. Now do it again, but using your quirk. Anything's allowed as long as you stand in the circle. He said as Izuku stepped in the circle. Anything, huh? Izuku said with a smirk before focusing. First he activated one for all to 60%, as that was the limit to where he could combine it with his own quirk without it getting out of control. Then he focused on any fruit that could boast his power. The Sunday through Sunday fruit to boast his power and strength, the Nin fruit model enhancer to enhance his strength and speed, Gum Gum to enter gear. Second, the More fruit to multiply his speed and power. He even used the Gravity fruit, as well as any white base Devil fruit to lower the ball resistance before costing it in the aura. He used to create Cruel Sun before enhancing that as well. Back with the class, they saw what was going on. Mr. Aizawa, don't you think that's a little overkill? Momo questioned, worried with Aizawa, just looked at her. There's no such thing as overkill in our line of work, he said simply before turning back. This is going to be awesome, Denki exclaimed with many others nodding in agreement and anticipation. Back to Izuku, he was ready and nodded to his teacher to show he was ready. Aizawa nodded, and Izuku wound up and threw the ball. Boom, a giant blast of dust kicked up as the shock wave that emitted through the class back several feet. When the class could see again, they were shocked to see Izuku in a hole several feet deep with cracks littering the ground around it. That was amazing, Zero exclaimed, being one of the first to recover his usual grin, even bigger. It was terrifying but amazing. It looks like his reputation is well-earned, Jairu said, still shaken from what she just witnessed. You got that right. Ribbit, Tsuyu exclaimed in her normal tone, but with a hint of awe. Meanwhile, others were going over to Izuku, who had gotten out of the hole as he made his way to Aizawa to get his score. That was incredible. I've never seen anything like it, Mina Ashido exclaimed, being the first to reach him. To have such power and be able to control it so easily. He truly is worthy of the title of strongest. Fumikage Tokoimi said, while Dark Shadow appeared, I could do better. Indeed, I'm interested in seeing how I would stack up to him, Mizo Shoji voiced, while looking toward Izuku, not seeing most of the guys, and some of the girls nodding in agreement, having wanted to fight him themselves. Izuku had made it to Aizawa, who was looking at Izuku's score on his phone, while Izuku stopped in front of his teacher. Well, Izuku asked, wanting to know his score. Aizawa just looked at his phone, sighed, and showed Izuku his score. Infinite, that's what was printed on the phone. Infinity? No way. How's that even possible? Although given all that build-up, it makes sense that it would be something like that. As you can see, Aizawa said, getting the attention of the class. We here at you. I will teach you to use your quirks to help in future heroic development, and these tests will give us a good idea where everyone is. This is gonna awesome, Zero said, excited to use his quirk. It sure will be fun. Mina wanted to start. Awesome. Fun, Aizawa muttered, gaining the attention of the class. All right, if that's the way you feel, how about this? Should a student not show any potential, I will expel them on the spot. Shocked muttering ran through the group, as most of them were freaking out at the thought of being expelled. Come on, guys, you can't seriously believe that. He doesn't have that kind of power, Momo said, annoyed that her classmates could fall for something like that. Just as the class was calming down, a voice ran out. Actually, little lady, he can do exactly that. What do you think happened to the 1A class last year? Present Mike said as he walked onto the field. Wait, you mean he could actually expel all of us? Momo said, terrified at the fact she was wrong and that she could be expelled. What are you doing here, Mike? Aizawa said, annoyed at the interruption. Present Mike was all smiles. That's easy, Aizawa. I came to check out what that big explosion was. While commonplace here, that one was a little too big to be standard. Though given who caused it, I shouldn't be surprised, he said, giving a thumbs up to Izuku, who ignored and focused on Aizawa, causing Mike to sulk. So basically, if we fail to impress, every one of us could be expelled, Izuku asked Aizawa, who nodded, which caused Izuku to smirk. Then going by that logic, all we have to do is impress you enough, and we all get to stay. Sounds simple enough, Izuku said confidently. At this, Aizawa gained a disturbing smile on his face. Easier said than done. Oh, and just so you know, given your reputation, I'll be judging extra critically. Sound good, champ? Aizawa challenged, still with that creepy grin on his face. Izuku was all smiles, wouldn't have it any other way. Suddenly, Uraraka spoke up. Hey, Izuku, aren't you going to power down? She asked the question everyone was wondering. Izuku was still in his powered-up state from when he had thrown the ball. Izuku shook his head. No, there's no point if I just have to keep powering it up each time. I'll just add and stop where needed. Besides, it makes good endurance training. A few of them nodded at the answer, while Kirishima screamed about being manly. All right, people, enough chit-chat, Aizawa said, having enough of the chatter and sending Present Mike away. It's time to begin, causing many to gulp, but also resolve themselves to pass and become true students of you. A test one. The first test was the 50-meter test, where the students had to use their quirks to cross in the shortest time they could. The average time was between 5 to 6 seconds, with noticeable exceptions like Bakugu and Ida, whose times were 4, 13 seconds and 3, 4 seconds respectively. When Izuku, who was paired to run with Bakugu, got in position, he used the Kilo no Mi and the Ton no Mi to cut down on his weight, while using the Gravity Devil Fruit to stop him from floating, while also using the Wind no Mi to cut down on wind resistance. Pair that with the enhancements from early Izuku was certain he could get a good score. At the buzzer, Izuku shot like a rocket out of the starting line and ran full speed toward the finish. When he crossed, he turned toward the machine to get his score. 1:75 seconds, it exclaimed with Izuku nodding, not noticing the shaking rage of Bakugu and the narrowed-eyed glare of the dual-haired student. Test 2, the grip test, wow. Mineta exclaimed along with Hantashiro as they started open-mouth at Shoji, who just got a score of 540 kilograms. Are you some kind of monster gorilla? I mean, you have those tentacles after all. Shiro questioned, and as Shoji opened his mouth crunch, they turned their heads to see Izuku and the remains of the broken grip tester on the floor next to him, with Aizawa pinching the bridge of his nose in annoyance. You might be a gorilla, but he's still a demon. Shiro said dryly. Test 3, standing long jump. The 3 test was to see who far one could jump with the use of their quirks. When it was Izuku's turn, he used the spring to get a better jump. You just clear the fence, sir. Momo said to Aizawa, having created some binoculars to see where he landed. Well, you can't blame him for not taking these tests seriously. Aizawa thought dryly. Test 4 side, stepping, surprising Mineta, was one of the best here, having used his hairball to bounce back and forth in rapid succession. When he was done, he was confident he scored first place, and some of the girls would notice him. However, when he turned, he saw everyone was staring gobsmacked at something. He turned and saw what it was and went red with anger. There were 2 Izukus using the pawpaw fruit very low-key to send a third Izuku back and forth. It was strong enough, so the Izuku in the middle was a blur between the 2, but not too strong as to send him flying. Mineta grit his teeth. Was there any way to take this BSDRD down? Test 5 ball throw. The shocker here was Uraraka, who with the help of her quirk managed to tie with Izuku's infinity. Second place went to Momo, who created a cannon and was able to clear 1,000 meters. Through it all, Bakugu could only snarl and grit his teeth. He hasn't been able to show these losers their place at all today, and what's worse, worthless Deku was scoring the top spots in every event. Bakugu was about to blow, and it wasn't about to be pretty. After that, the class preformed the rest of their test, and before long, it was time to get their scores. Naturally, Izuku was at the top. Below him was Momo Yairozu, and in third was the dual-haired boy, whose name turned out to be Shoto Todoroki. After revealing their scores, everyone turned to Aizawa ready for his verdict. That was passable, Aizawa stated, causing the class to cheer, and some at the bottom to drop into a dead faint. It was passable, but we have a lot of work due to. Get ready to work harder than you ever worked before. Aizawa warned to his students. Through it all, Bakugu just had his eyes on the scoreboard. Fourth, he came in fourth, not just behind Deku, but behind Ponytail and half. Unacceptable, so he did the only thing he could think of. DKU. Losing all sense of reason, Bakugu ran towards Deku, ready to remind the BSDRD of his place under him. However, before he could get more than 10 feet, bindings appeared around him, and his quirk shut off. What the hell? Bakugu exclaimed, not being able to get out. I was warned you had a temper, but that is ridiculous. It's time you and I had a long talk. Aizawa stated with his quirk activated, indicated by his glowing eyes and raised hair. As Bakugu was being dragged away, the rest could only stare. Dude, so unmanly. Kirishima shook his head in disbelief at how childish he could be. Izuku just snorted, you get used to it. He turned to leave for the day, only to feel someone tug on his sleeve. Izuku looked down and saw an abashed and red-looking Kyokajiru. Do you need something? Izuku asked Jiru, still red. Well, I was wondering if you had any plans for after school. Jiru asked, causing Izuku to raise an eyebrow, some of the boys to gasp, and some of the girls to narrow their eyes. No, why? Izuku asked, though having a good idea. Well, Jiru began. I've seen some of your fights where you use those spurts behind you. They're called stands, right? At this, Izuku nodded. Well, when you call on some of those stands, I've noticed that some of them are names of bands and songs, like Chili Pepper, Killer Queen, Aerosmith. At this point, Jaira noticed she was rambling, and noticing the looks on her classmates' faces, she decided to hurry it up. The point is my family owns a music shop, and in addition to instruments, we also sell music from all over. So I was wondering if you'd like to come over and check out our selection. Jaira was quick to finish her offer. Sure sounds like fun. Understand, you're busy with wait what? Jaira interrupted herself, her brain finally processing what Izuku said. I said it sounds like fun. We could even grab something to eat after my treat. Izuku offered with a smile. Really? Jaira questioned happily, which only grew when she noticed the jealousy in some of the girls' eye. Of course, let's just get changed, and then we can get going, but I will have to just let my mom know. You know how overprotective parents can be. Absolutely, Jaira said, knowing full well how paranoid parents can get. My dad's the same way. I was actually going to call my mom to keep him distracted. Izuku nodded with a smile. So meet at the front gates. Jaira nodded, sounds good. Izuku nodded and headed toward the locker room, followed by the rest of the guys, some of whom were congratulating him on scoring a date, telling him what a man he is, and how to treat a fellow student on a date. Idenki, Kirishima, and Ida, respectively. The girls, meanwhile, were just staring at Jaira narrowed-eyed. What the heck was that, Jaira? Asked Mina, pissed that Jaira got to ask Izuku out before her. Jaira just smirked and shrugged. What can I say? I saw an opportunity, and I took it. Now, if you excuse me, I've got a date to prepare for. With that, Jaira turned and headed to the school, only to stop at something he said. You know, there are rumors about him dating his manger, right? Ribbit. At this, Jaira thought for a moment, and then shrugged. I'm an open-minded person. And with that, she left to the changing room to prepare. Later at the gates, Izuku was waiting patiently when he heard Izuku. Jaira was heading toward him. Thanks for waiting. Izuku just smiled. No problem. So you ready? Jaira nodded happily. Yup, let's go. And with that, Jaira and Izuku headed out side by side. At least some things are normal. Izuku thought, setting in literature class. It was the day after the Quirk aptitude test, and classes were well in session. On the bright side, his outing with Jaira was nice, and both had a good time. Izuku got to meet both of her parents. Mika, Jaira's mother, was nice, polite, and very pleasant, though Izuku was surprised when he found out she's a fan of punk rock, though after learning she was a musician and hearing a few of her songs, she clearly had a talent for it. Izuku, when he first met Kyotoku, Jaira's father, he thought he was hilarious. The second the two students entered the shop, a blur ran into room and grabbed Jaira into embrace. The blur turned out to be a sobbing Kyotoku, who was sobbing about his little girl growing up too fast. Then he spotted Izuku within a second. Kyotoku was in Izuku's face, demanding what a vile piece of filth's intention was with his little rocker. It was clearly an act of intimidation, and Izuku would admit, if it weren't for the fact Izuku was 6 feet 5 inches and Kyotoku was a mere 5 feet 7 inches. It was further ruined when Mika came in and told the two Kyotoku was basically bouncing off the walls in excitement when he learned Akuma was coming. This, of course, started another set of waterworks, crying out he was trying to be intimidating. After that, things went pretty well. Izuku showed of his instrument Devil Fruit and jammed to the best of his abilities when the family wanted to see how well he could. After that, it was time for the two students to head out to grab some dinner. And once again, Kyotoku tried to be the intimidating dad, who was quickly subdued by Mika, who reminded the two that it was still a school night and to be back before it got too late. After that, Izuku took Jaira to one of the restaurants she liked, and they just talked. Izuku about his time and friends in the arena, and Jaira talked about growing up with rock star parents. Jaira did reveal some doubts she had, and Izuku offered to help if she ever needed it, to which she happily agreed. Though she did turn down the offer to meet his trainer for training, not that Izuku could blame her. When they finished, Izuku held true to his word and paid for the meal. After that, he walked Jaira home and headed home himself, ignoring the onslaught of questions his mother and sister asked him. Back to the present class. 1A was currently setting through their everyday class that taught subjects outside the hero courses, and as much as people found them annoying, Izuku welcomed them today as it was the only thing that stopped the endless sea of questions the guys and girls were asking Izuku and Jiraiya respectively. Soon it was time for lunch. Izuku was taken back by the massive amount of food put on his plate. "Little much, don't you think?" Izuku asked. Now people could contribute this to being an arena fighter, and as such being used to having more food, and this was the case at UA. A manger and/or trainer could contact the school, and in exchange for providing the compensation, they could get an increase of food. "Your manger met with me a few days ago." Lunch Rush revealed to him. "She convinced me that you needed this much, and after proving it could be paid for, I had no reason to say no." "Convince you, huh?" Izuku questioned with a raised eyebrow, and although Izuku couldn't see it, he knew the man had broken into a cold sweat. She was very convy dash. It was the eyes, wasn't it? The eyes. What was with the eyes? After that, Izuku knew there was no point in arguing and just decided to eat, knowing there would be hell to pay if word got back to his manger and trainer that he left food on his plate, and as unlikely as it was it usually did. Finally, after lunch, it was time for what everyone had been waiting for, hero training, taught by none other than All Might. "I am here." A voice came from hallway, causing everyone but Izuku to turn toward the door in excitement. Coming through the door like a hero, All Might opened the door, doing a ridiculous pose and causing the class to shout in excitement. "I can't believe it. All Might's really here. He really is a teacher this year. This is going to be amazing. He's here in his Sliver Age costume too. Talk about cool." As more students talked, All Might continued to strut up to the teacher's podium, causing Izuku to roll his eyes. "Welcome to Hero 101. This is where you what it takes to being a pro and what it means to fight in the name of good." All Might exclaimed, further hyping up the class. "So I figured we'd get right into it and have mock battles." That was the tipping point as the class erupted in excitement, but All Might wasn't done just yet. However, one of the things about being a hero is looking the part. As he said this, suitcases labeled with their student numbers appeared out of the wall. These were designed for you based on a request you submitted before school. All Might exclaimed as the students went to grab their equipment. Izuku got his looked inside and smirked. Later at Training Ground Beta, All Might was patiently waiting for his students to appear, and when he saw them approach, he started speaking again. "They say clothes make them pro, and right now you're the pros," he exclaimed as the group appeared. Many of his students looked the part, and while they would need to make some improvements down the line, they were definitely a good start. Feeling curious as to what his successor chose, he turned his attention to Izuku and was surprised to see his choice. Yes, All Might was shocked at such a simple choice, and he wasn't the only one. "Izuku dude, isn't that a little plain?" Denki asked, as even he and Jiraiya, who were wearing basically street clothes, as well had some equipment attached. "Does it really seem like I need anything else?" Izuku questioned, and nobody had an answer for him. "That's what I thought." "Anyway," All Might exclaimed, getting back on track. "Today we will be having 2 versus 2 indoor mock battles. You've had experience outside and against machines, but you need experience fighting people with quirks, and in an indoor environment, this will help you get experience in both. Now, any questions? How will we decide who wins? How badly can we hurt the other team? Will the losers be expelled? How will teams be decided? Doesn't this look great on me?" So many questions. All Might, though, shaking before clearing his throat. "Anyway, here is the mission. The villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. It will be the hero's job to find it. For the heroes to win, either capture the villains or secure the weapon by touching it. Likewise, guarding the bomb or capturing the heroes will result in the villain's victory. Now, to test your thinking on the fly, we will assign teams based on lots. To test how will you work when working with random heroes." All Might said, causing the class to nod. "Now, then let's get started. Team A, Izuku and Momo. Team B, Todoroki and Shoji. Team C, Mineta and Uraraka. Team D, Bakugo and Ida. Team Aoyama and Mina. Team F, Sato and Koda. Team G, Denki and Jiraiya. Team H, Hu and Tokoimi. Team I, Ojiro and Toru. Team J, Siro and Kirishima. Izuku turned toward his teammate. "I heard you're one of the students who got here on recommendation. It'll be good working with you," he said to Momo, which seemed to knock her out of whatever though she seemed to be having, and nod. "All right, everyone. All Might said with his hands in the hero and villain boxes. The first two will be these two. Team A as the heroes and Team D as the villains. All Might finished holding the two ball. Everyone else head to the monitor room and watch. As the class did, as their teacher instructed, Momo was trying to think of any plan she can that didn't involve relying on Izuku. She was knocked out of her planning when she heard said partner. Don't overthink it. The minute we got Bakugu as an opponent was the moment victory was handed to us. Bakugu, hearing this, snarled with explosions flaring to life in his hands as he stomped toward the building with Ida following, trying to calm his partner down. Neither noticing the smirk on Izuku's face. Momo did, however, and at a raised eyebrow and questioning look, Izuku leaned down and whispered his plan, causing Momo's eyes to widen. Suddenly, All Might's voice rang out. Hero team begin. Monitor room. Why are they just standing there? Mina asked, confused why Team A was doing nothing except having Izuku looking up and down at the building. I don't know, but they're wasting time. Todoroki said, looking at the screen. If they don't move, they'll lose before they even start. Wait a minute. Look, something's happening, Toru said, pointing at the screen, which was only indicated by her gloves. It was true, though. Izuku was saying something to Momo while pointing at the building. Sadly, they didn't have audio, so they couldn't hear anything. Izuku seemed to say something to Momo, which caused her to get flustered and say something back, only to be shot down immediately by whatever Izuku said and lower her head in defeat. They were, however, shocked when Momo proceeded to climb onto Izuku's back and hang onto his neck. What the hell is that? Mineta screamed, tears of LD, causing his classmates, including his partner, to back away from him. Why is she hanging on that BSTRD's back? No one had an answer, but it was provided in second later, as both seemed to disappear into thin air. Wow, what the hell? They just disappeared. Sato said, surprised. So this is their plan? Turn invisible and just sneak through? No, that can't be it. Todoroki denied. Otherwise, they won't have waited and begun immediately. So what's their play then? Kirishima asked, but no one had an answer, and it was silent for a few minutes until Uraraka spoke up. Hey, there's Izuku, she said, pointing to a screen to see a now visible Izuku seemingly talking to no one. Guess he's talking to Momo. But again, what is their plan? Have Izuku act as bait while Momo tries to find the bomb. Ida and Bakugu would notice she's missing, plus have they even found it yet? Mina asked, tired of not knowing what's going on. Before anyone could respond, they saw Bakugu fly around the corner, explosions in his hands and murder in his eyes. He was screaming something, and even though there was no sound, the students had an idea of what he was saying. Looks like it's Izuku versus Bakugu, Ojiro muttered, with the class nodding in agreement. They would be wrong, however, because as soon as Bakugu made contact, there was a blinding flash of light before the camera went dead. What the hell? Zero yelled as he and the rest of the class were trying to figure out what happened. All Might, meanwhile, was trying to get another angel to try to get information on what happened. After a while, he finally got something. All right, class, looks like we got my god. All Might exclaimed, having finally seen Bakugu. The one in question had seen better days. His costume upper half was completely gone, his gauntlets completely broken and laying at his side in pieces. The boy himself was completely knocked out, with what looked like lighting coming off him every so often. Luckily, his vitals looked normal, so he should be fine. What the hell? Tokoyami suddenly exclaimed, causing everyone, All Might included, to look at him. Look, there's a second Baku. What? Impossible. No way. But sure enough, there was a second Bakugu heading toward where Ito was. All was silent until Mina finally lost it. Okay, what the hell is going? With Ida, Bakugu. Bakugu. Come in, what was that explosion? For the last few minutes, Ida was trying to get in contact with Bakugu, who had run off the second the hero team was allowed to start. Ida was nervous about facing the two from the start, what with one being a recommendation student and the other being Akuma. However, he felt with Bakugu's help they could hold the two off long enough to win. Now, however, he was just trying to contact his partner, and just as he was about to try again, he heard a cry of four eyes. Looking, he saw his partner run toward him with an even angry look on his face. Them normal. Bakugu, what was that? Ida demanded, only for Bakugu to snarl. Hell if I know, but I know it's that Demon Deku. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go hunt down Ponytail while I wait here for Deku. I won't let that nerd win, so go. The explosion user snarled. Ida, knowing he wasn't going to be able to convince the boy otherwise, walked out of the room. Wait a minute for eyes. Ida stopped and turned. Yes. What is Ida stopped as his eyes widened in surprise and shock as Bakugu's hand was inches from him, and the boy in question had a maniacal grin. Die. Then he was blasted in time. Ida has just enough time to hear Bakugu's shout of Momo now, as a small hatch just appeared on Bakugu's hand, and Momo, appearing out of nowhere, wasted no time in touching the bomb. The hero team wins. Later, all right, that was a good job, everyone. Now I just have a couple of questions like Dash. What the hell was all of that? Somebody start explaining now or else. Mina shouted, looking at the odd group in front of them, which composed of two Bakugas, one of which was still in a daze, a confused-looking Ida, and a happy-looking Momo. The conscious Bakugu simply smirked, sure, but first let me change out of this. Before anyone could question what that meant, smoke erupted from him, and when it cleared the class, was surprised to see a 10-foot humanoid fox that to everyone's shock had 9 tails. What was strange was it was wearing exactly what Izuku had been wearing, but there was no way. So where to begin? Midoriya. Izuku chuckled as he turned fully back to normal. Well, might as well start with that. What you saw just was the dog fruit model, 9-tailed fox. It was what let me turn into Bakugu, costume and all. So any more questions? Izuku asked, even though he knew the answer. Yes, how about you tell us what happened and how you did this? All Might asked as he was curious how this successor did this. Of course. Izuku nodded before starting. The first thing we had to do was find the bomb. Thanks to my glare ability, it was a simple task. After that, we had to disappear, and for that to happen, I had to have been in contact with something, in this case Momo, to turn it invisible. Mineta was still sulking in the background, was seen muttering lucky BSDRD, and other obscene things which were ignored. Okay, then how about with what happened with Bakugu? Ojiro asked with crossed arms and a confused face. All we saw was him attacking you, and then there was a flash of light, and when we could see him again, he was knocked out cold. Mind explaining that? Izuku smirked, of course, but I had help from my partner over here. He said, pointing over to Momo, who preened at the praise, much to the annoyance of the girls. I asked her to create me a taser and flash grenade that I used to form a clone, which I then kept invisible and sent it on its way, and to use its sensory abilities to track down Bakugu, and when he attacked the clone, Bakugu was hit with the full force of both items at point blank. Izuku finished was a smirk brutal. Everyone, even All Might, thought. Izuku chuckled to himself and continued his explanation. After that, I hid Momo inside my body using my castle ability until it was time for her to get the bomb. And you all pretty much know the rest. Using the dog fruit model 9-tailed fox, I morphed into Bakugo, and being around him for years, was able to mimic his personality pretty well. After that, all that was left to get to Ida, trick him to show his back, then I was able to use my nitro ability to blow him far enough away fit Momo to get to the bomb. Izuku just smirked at the dumbfounded look on his classmates and All Might's face. Pretty good plan, right? Needless to say, he was made the MVP of the match. Just as the next match was about to be called, Bakugo woke up and was immediately pissed. Where the hell am I? What the hell happened? Last thing I remember was I was about to destroy Deku. What the hell did you do? Nobody knew what to do until Mina spoke up. So does someone want to tell him, or can I? Later, needless to say, Bakugo was pissed at being defeated so easily. That only grew when he watched the other students. All throughout his school life, he was unmatched, and no one could even come close. Izuku was the only one that could compare, and he refused to admit Izuku was stronger than him. But seeing so many kids his age that were that strong pissed him off, especially that half-and-half BSDRD. As much as Bakugo hated to admit it, Todoroki was stronger than him. Needless to say, Bakugo realized he had a lot of work to do. Great job today, class. All Might exclaimed. You all showed great potential, and there were no major injuries, so that's even better. Now I want all of you to remember what you learned and saw here today, and remember these words, and keep them in your hearts. Go beyond. Plus Ultra. All Might exclaimed as he bolted from a room to the cheers of Class 1A. All Izuku did was roll his eyes, typical Tashinori-sensei. Even when no longer on a time limit, he always has to make an exit. He thought dryly as he followed his classmates to the changing room. After class, school was over and Izuku was heading home. Kirishima, Shiro, and some of his classmates had invited him to hang out, but he had to refuse as he had a last-minute match scheduled for tonight. He apologized, but was quickly waved off and told they'd watch it on TV to see him kick butt. As he was heading out, he heard a cry of Deku. He turned and saw Bakugo, who actually looked to be on the verge of tears. Don't think this means anything, Deku. This means nothing. Today was fluke got it. A fluke. Izuku merely looked at Bakugo, who was huffing and glaring. Sure, Bakugo. Sure, Izuku said before walking away. At this, Bakugo could grit his teeth and glare at Deku. The BSDRD who completely destroyed the picking order in his life, the one who stole the spotlight, and the one who left him behind. Yeah, I'm going this route. Deal with it. The next day, reporters never change. Izuku thought annoyed as he watched the reporters swarm the a gate. Honestly, Izuku should have expected this, considering All Might was teaching here, and of course reporters would swarm the place. Though the real problem was somehow the media found out he was here. When he called Amanda and told her what happened, she went silent for a moment before promising him she would find the leak. Although he had no way to prove it, Izuku knew for a fact Amanda had subconsciously activated her quirk when he told her. Good grief, even after knowing her for years and eventually dating her, she can still scare the CRP out of him. Luckily, he had seen the reporters before they saw him. A quick use of clear and calm, along with some evasive movements, saw him in the building with no problems. Now, they were sitting in class, and Aizawa was going over the results of the mock battles until finally it came to him and Bakugo. Bakugo, you rushed in and quickly got yourself taken out. Learn to control your temper, or else you won't be able to do anything. Bakugo could only glare, grit his teeth, and respond with a yes, sir. Midoriya, good job overall, but you might have overthought your strategy a little. Work on that. Izuku nodded, knowing it was a bad habit. Now, then class, it's time to decide something that could affect your future. Q class freak out. It's time to pick a class president. Q freak out changed to cheers with request to be picked. Izuku could only stare uninterested as his classmates asked and yelled for them to be picked. Izuku understood why thought. Being class rep meant being put in a position of leadership and the chance to impress several pros. Something that wasn't interesting to Izuku, as he had met many pros growing up. In fact, that's what helped him out of his fanboy phase. Ultimately, it was Ida who provided a good method by the option voting, which the class agreed to, and the results were annoying to say the least. All right, your class rep is Izuku Midoriya, and your vice rep is Momo Yaoyorozu. Aizawa said, as uninterested as normal. Momo was all smiles. It will be nice working with you, Midoriya. I'll help you in any way I can. Momo said as she knew the class rep and vice rep worked together a lot and spent quite a lot of time together, and judging by the twitches of the other girls, they knew it too. Izuku nodded, only half listened, trying to fight off the head ache and annoyance. Seriously, how the hell did he get 15 votes? Cafeteria. You shouldn't be surprised, Midoriya. Ida said at once they had all taken their seats in the cafeteria after getting their food, and once again Midoriya had an obscene amount of food, and Izuku had told him his problems. Pretty much everyone our age has heard of you, and a lot of us admire you. I mean, look around, pretty much everyone is looking. Izuku did as Ida said, and true to his word, pretty much everyone was looking and pointing. Hell, Izuku could even see some teachers talking and pointing. So, Ida, I was wondering, you seem to want to become class president, but you didn't even vote for yourself. Ochako questioned with Ida. Wanting the job and earning the job are completely different things. Observing the Ida family hero agency has taught me that. Hero agency. What exactly does your family do? Izuku asked, and Ida looked like he had been caught for something. Ochako jumped onto this and asked something she's been wondering about. So tell the truth, Ida. Your filthy, rich army, you. Ochako questioned, which caused Ida to go on to explain that his family is a long line of heroes. Ida even revealed the fact that he was the younger brother of the turbo hero Ingenium. Ingenium? Izuku questioned. The same one that Dash, yes. The same one that you defeated a few months ago. Ida responded, though there was no anger or resentment on his face. It was true. There were times where pro heroes came to the tower to challenge powerful fighters, either to test their strength or increase their reps. Ingenium had come to the tower to request a match with Izuku, and normally, even for a pro, they would be put on a waiting list. But luckily for Ingenium, they had a last-minute cancellation, and they needed a competitor. Izuku would be lying if he said it was that interesting or challenging. All he really did was use the lick fruit to cover the arena in candy, before using it to coat Ingenium in candy until it reached his elbows and clogged his engines, rendering him immobile. Again, it wasn't the most interesting or challenging, but he did get to use a devil fruit he rarely did, so there was that at least. Wow, Izuku beat your brother Ida. I'm surprised you're so friendly with him. Ochako asked, surprised. You think highly of me, Ochako. The truth is I watched the match between the two of you on TV, Izuku. At the time, I had seen many of your matches and seen how you fight. However, I admit that I let my respect and admiration for my brother cloud my senses and berated and belittled you for a tactic that one would expect from you by now, but I couldn't help see it as an act of belittlement and mockery. Ida admitted, and Ochako was shocked, while Izuku just listened, having grown used to this, but he was surprised when Ida suddenly smiled, but then Tenya came home, and I was shocked to see him smiling. I couldn't help but questioned after being mocked and humiliated like he was. I still remember what he said. Why would I mad? I had fun and came up with few ideas for new moves. So as far as I'm concerned, it was a good day. After that, I was able to think and see you weren't doing anything like I thought you were. So I must apologize, Midoriya. I misjudged you. Ida said while bowing as low as he could while sitting at the table with Izuku waving him off. It was then that Ochako realized something. Hey, Izuku, you have to get paid a ton of money from the battle tower, right? How much do you make? Ochako questioned while Ida was about to berate her. Izuku spoke. Well, I'm not exactly sure. I spent pretty much my 6 to 10 years on the 100 to 200 floor, which gives out millions for each fight. And I've been won the 200 plus ever since. Plus, there's my bonus as champion and endorsements, so I'm not sure. Answered Izuku, having never really thought about it. All he was interested in was the fighting plus when there was always enough money, so he just never worried about it. Meanwhile, Ida and Ochako were just staring open-mouthed at him. Wow, Izuku, you must live in a palace or something. Ochako exclaimed, not in jealously, just in shock. Izuku shook his head. No, actually it's just a normal apartment complex. We didn't need anything impressive, though now we might need a new place considering we just adopted a little girl. Before Ida and Ochako could say anything else, a siren blared to life as a level 3 breach was announced. Apparently, a level 3 breach was the defenses guarding the school were passed, and there were intruders on the grounds. It wasn't long before the cafeteria was a madhouse as students were panicking and pushing and shoving each other. Soon it could lead to trampling, which could end very, very badly. As this was going on, Izuku was shoved to the window, and he could see just who these intruders were. The media. This panic was caused by the media. Izuku thought annoyed and angry before he tried to tell people, but couldn't be heard. Quickly growing annoyed, he flew into the air and used a lesser-known ability, the voice fruit. Oi, all of you calm down. They have heard the rumors of All Might and myself being here and must have found a way in. Look, people next to the window looked down and confirmed it for everyone else, calming everyone down. Seeing this, Izuku turned off the voice fruit and flew down. Honestly, Izuku sighed as he landed with most of his class running over to him. Izuku, that was incredible, Ochako said as she reached him. Yeah, man. Taking control like that was beyond manly. Kirishima yelled, that goes to prove without a shadow of a doubt we made the right selection in choosing you as our class rep. Ida exclaimed, robot movements going non-stop, and the rest of his classmates nodding in agreement. Izuku could only sigh in annoyance. So much for pawning the job off on Ida. The next day, Class 1A was outside waiting to board the bus that would take them to the USJ so they could practice rescue missions. Izuku was in his hero costume as he leaned on said bus waiting to board as everyone else had arrived. Getting the signal from Aizawa, he banged his fist on the bus, getting everyone's attention. "All right, everyone get on the bus. Doesn't matter how you sit, just don't cause any problems," Izuku said before boarding the bus and taking a seat, followed by everyone else, with Ida looking dejected and muttering something about noticing what kind of bus or something like that. As they were on the way to the USJ, Azui spoke up. "Hey Midoriya, can I ask you something?" She questioned with Izuku nodding. "Of course, Azui. Call me Tsu. Ribbit. Anyway, I've seen you fight a lot on TV and noticed sometimes you turn into elements to fly around and stuff. But there are times when you turn into an element and let them pass through you, but most of the time you just dodge or block. Why is that?" Tsu questioned. "Yeah, I've seen that before. Seems like you got an unstoppable defense there," Toru said, with the others nodding in agreement, having seen something similar. Izuku laughed, so wondering about that Tsu. He missed the blush on her face. "There's actually two reasons. When it felt like cheating to me. Everyone's giving it their all, and I'm hiding behind one ability. Just didn't feel right." The class nodded, and Kirishima looked close to tears. "And the second reason?" Suro asked. Izuku took a moment to think back to all the visions he had as a kid, and there was a certain set that stood out to him. "I didn't want to come to rely on it," Izuku said, and after noticing the looks on his classmates' faces, he continued. "True, for pretty much any and every possible attack, they'd go right through me. But there's always a chance that it will hit me, and that hit might be the attack that kills me." Izuku finished his explanation as he recalled all the memories of Logia users overestimating their defense and dying young. The rest of the class nodded in understanding. "You know, given your past power and fame in the tower, you'll be pretty popular hero." So you said. "Yeah, unlike Bakugo, whose personality is flaming CRP mixed with garbage," Denki said with a face that said he was just waiting the kaboom. And the kaboom did not disappoint. "The hell did you say, Pikachu? I'll kill you." And that pretty much was how it was for the rest of the ride. Soon they had reached the USJ and were greeted by the Space Hero 13, who explained what the class was going to be doing, while also describing the 6 different zones. And unseen to everyone, Izuku tensed up a bit when mentioning the flood zone. Just as they were about to get started, an electric current ran through the lights, as a mist suddenly appeared out of nowhere in the central plaza. And through the mist, many figures appeared, with the final 3 being a man covered in hands, a hulking feature with a bird beak and a dead look in its eyes, and finally a man who looked to be made of the mist itself. "Hey, what's going on? Has the training already started?" Kirishima questioned, only to stop by Aizawa. "Stop. Those are villains." Aizawa ordered, readying his equipment. 13. Protect the students. At this, many students voiced their concern about fighting alone. Aizawa merely waved it off by stating one couldn't be a pro if they didn't have a few tricks, and then proceeded to jump down into the fray. And true to his word, the students' fear seemed unfounded as Aizawa dealt with the villains with little issue. As this was going on, the class decided to retreat so they could trigger the alarm and alert the teachers of what was going on after Kaminari confirmed that communications were down. The students were heading for the exit, with Izuku coming up last to prevent any sneak attacks. Just as they were about to get to the door, the one made of mist. Throughout his speech, he identified the group as the League of Villains and revealed their goal was to kill All Might. However, before he could say any more, or 13 could try anything, Bakugo and Kirishima flew past them and tried to bring down the Mist Man, only for the man to appear completely fine and then spread out his mist to surround the students. Izuku, throughout it all, was trying to think of a way to take this guy out. First, he considered using Haki, and after Kirishima and Bakugo attacked, Izuku spotted a brace, which indicated an actual body. However, he couldn't see past the mist, and through it he did hear the man speak off, scattering the class. Before Izuku could try anything, the villain held true to his word, and when Izuku got his bearings, his eyes widened in shock. For you see, Izuku found himself failing rapidly toward the water-filled shipwreck zone. SHD. Izuku swore to himself as fell toward the water and what was a watery grave fall in. Luckily, he activated the float fruit, and stopped inches from the water. Okay, that was way too close. Izuku said as he wiped sweat from his head before flying toward the boat in the middle of the zone. When Izuku landed, he activated his observation haki before sensing Ku and Mineta and running over and seeing on the side of the boat, too. Mineta, up here. The two looked up, and Izuku could see the hope and relief in their eyes when they saw him. Midoriya, oh, thank God you're here. Mineta cried tears as he was thrown onto the boat by two before she climbed on herself. Are you both okay? Midoriya questioned with Tsuyu nodding. Ribbit, more or less. The real question is what do we do now? Tsuyu asked as the three looked and saw villains surfacing and surrounded the boat. What do you mean, what do we do? Mineta cried, tears flowing hard and fast. We've got Akuma here to protect us. Plus All Might will be here soon. All we gotta do is sit tight. Mineta screamed, trying to make the two see reason. Mineta, are you sure the hero course is right for you? Tsuyu asked before turning to Izuku, ignoring the cries of Mineta. So what do we do, Midoriya? If they are confident enough to come to you, with the intent to kill All Might, they must have something planned. The fact they sent you here of all places shows they thought this out. Tsuyu asked with Izuku nodding. His weakness to bring submerged in water or any liquid really was no secret. Years traveling to different battle towers with different kind of arenas will reveal anyone's weaknesses, and Izuku was no exception. Maybe, but if that were the case, and they went through everyone, why send you here where you're strongest and not the fire zone? Izuku asked with Tsuyu nodding. Good point. So what's the plan? We get back to the others, that's what. Izuku said, ready to move, however, before he could, Mineta spoke up. How we do that? We're surrounded, and the only reason we're not dead yet is because you're here. Is that it? Are you going to sacrifice us, you badash? Mineta was interrupted by Tu, who slapped him with her tone. Continue, she said simply. Izuku needed no further prompting and leapt into the air, covering his hand in ice as he did so. Ice Age, Izuku exclaimed, firing a beam of ice into the water, instantly freezing it as it did so. The villains, seeing this, panicked and immediately dived down deep, narrowly, missing being hit by the ice as it covered the entire surface in a matter of seconds. Tu and Mineta just stood there shocked at the power. Ribbit, you can say that again. Ribbit. Izuku stood up and faced them. Come on, we should get going. It'll take them a while to break through and should give us plenty of time to back to the others. So let's go. Mineta and Tsu didn't need any more prompting as they jumped down onto the ice and ran with Izuku to reunite with their classmates. What do we do? Ida thought desperately as he tried to think how to get out of this horrible situation. His classmates were scattered along with their strongest members. Now, he was just trying to come up with a plan for the situation. Tenya, Ida, how about a mission for you? 13 spoke suddenly. I need you to escape from the facility and alert the school. 13 ordered as they got ready to stall and fight Kirojiri. What? I can't leave while my classmates are here fighting for their lives. Ida greatly protested the idea. Go on, Ida. We'll make sure this guy doesn't stop you. Sato said, getting ready to fight against the mist villain. Ida, we've got this. Shiro said, standing next to Sato, ready to back him up. Do it, Ida. Yeah, we got your back. Ochako and Mina threw in their own support, with Shoji nodding and giving a multi-thumbs up. Use your quirk to save others. Be a real hero. 13 said, giving Ida the last push he needed. Ida readied himself, cleared his mind, and shot forward, ready to do anything it took to get past Kirojiri, who did nothing as Ida passed with no problem. That was the first red flag for 13 as they watched Ida got to the door and was able to open it. Just as the speedster was about to run, he heard a cry of stop from behind him, causing him to stop just short of hitting something. It was a second later they all saw what it was. Kirojiri started chuckling. Come now. Did you not think we would come here with no hidden trump cards ready? But please, by all means, try and run through it. The results will be entertaining. Kirojiri said, clearly enjoying himself. You underestimate us, villain. 13 said as they activated their quirk to consume the barrier, never noticing Kirojiri moving. Shiro did, however, and tried to yell out a warning that unfortunately came too late as Kurogiri activated his quirk to open a couple of warp gates to turn 13's quirk against themselves. In Class 1, it could do nothing but watch in horror as 13 practicality destroyed themselves. Izuku, Mineta, and Tu had just reached the edge of the ice when they saw a sight that caused the trio's eyes to widen in shock and horror at they saw. Mr. Aizawa was being held down by the bird creature covered in BLD with the hand BSDRD doing something to their teacher's elbow by touching it while monologuing about some bull CRP. Izuku wasted no time as he activated the Op fruit and created a room that covered the villains without either noticing. Just as Izuku was about to trade places with Aizawa, who placed her hand on his arm. "I have an idea of what you're about to do, and I know it's our best option, but still can't you go in with a little more power ready to go?" she asked. Izuku thought for a moment. The plan was to trade places with Aizawa and slam the bird with a full-powered one for all sneak attack before slamming Handman, while letting the healing factors of his bird model Phoenix heal any damage he would revive from the backlash. However, that did come with a problem, as there was something wrong with one for all that neither he nor Tashinori-sensei could figure out. There were actually two problems with it. The first was that whenever Izuku used it, he couldn't move as fast or fluidly when he used it. Like how people can't move as fast and freely in water. The bigger the percentage, the more restricted he was. Luckily, he found the enhancements from the abilities of his Devil Fruit quirk helped him level that out. The second was the power he could produce with One for All. All Might explained that the phrase "go beyond" plus ultra wasn't just a saying, but actually a fact about that quirk allowed him to literally go past 100% of power. But for some reason, Izuku just can't access that power no matter what or how hard he tried. Izuku shook his head. This was no time to be thinking about that. "You're right, Sue. He already had One for All going full blast. So let's add a little more." As Izuku said, this accosted his arms and legs in armament hockey. It was so strong that armament was actually coming off them. Like how Zoro coasted his swords when he was tossed and sliced the Pika Colossus in half. "Well, how about now?" This seemed enough. Izuku asked, and Tu and Mineta looked pretty convinced there was still some doubt on their faces, and given the situation, it was to be expected. Just as he was about to assure them, it was more than enough a thought accrued to him that this was the perfect chance to use a devil fruit he hasn't gotten to use for a while. Grinning, Izuku spoke. "Actually, there's something else that might help." With that, he activated the fruit, and as he did, Izuku saw the last of the doubt leave their eyes as their jaws fell. Izuku's grin grew as he saw this. "We good." All he got was a nod, and with that he snapped his fingers. Tamura was feeling pretty good, all things considered. True, All Might wasn't there for his Nomu to kill, but considering the fact 2 pro heroes and 20 heroes in training, including Akuma, was about to die in AU. A facility that will send an even bigger message about how useless heroes and the symbol of peace was. Talk about clearing a level in style. And it was going to start right now. Nomu, kill this hero and show the world how useless heroes truly are. Shigaraki yelled in glee, ready to see Eraserhead die. Nomu roared and slammed his fist into the ground, blowing up a dust storm, and Tamura was practically hoping up and down, ready to see and display the corpse for the world. To see these plans, and his smile came crashing down as Nomu was suddenly blasted back by some unseen force, which should have been impossible given it had All Might level shock absorption ready. Nomu crashed into the other side of the building, causing a large tremor that violently shocked the whole building. Shigaraki turned and glared death at the smoke cloud, a tantrum quickly rising as a figure. Probably the one who just cheated appeared, and that was when the man-child got a good look at the BSDRD who dared to damage his toy. "Who the F? And what the F are you?" Shigaraki spat, not even trying to control himself. The beast just laughed as it replied, "A new challenger." It finished with a smirk. Landslide Zone Todoroki had just finished interrogating the villain he was able to capture with his mother's ice. At first, he was worried they had gathered an army of elite villains to kill All Might, though that idea was quickly thrown out when he realized they were just common thugs. He was about to head back to the entrance when suddenly he was knocked to the floor as a tremor violently shocked the building. Getting up, Shoto immediately went toward the source to find out what was the cause, unknowingly being followed by Toru, who was there the whole time. Ruin zone. The hell was that? Kirishima exclaimed as he felt everyone else felt the shaking throughout the building. He, along with Bakugo, had just about finished when the shaking started and took care of the rest. Deku. It had to be Deku. He's fighting those main BSDRDS, I'm sure of it. Bakugo exclaimed in rage at the mere thought of Izuku fighting the real threats while he was here fighting useless fodder. Really, you think so? That's the world champ for you. He LL show those villains what real men are. Kirishima exclaimed with complete faith in the world champion. This, if anything, only seemed to PSS Bakugo off even more. Come on, shitty hair. We're heading over. No way am I letting Deku fight the only decent BSDRDS here. Bakugo yelled in rage before taking off toward the plaza, with Kirishima right behind him. OPIzuku once again casually dodged another strike from the hand BSDRD. This had been going on for the last couple of minutes, after he made sure Deku and Mineta got Aizawa away from the villain who was in the middle of throwing a tantrum. Cheater, charter, cheater. You must have cheated somehow. Nomu was designed to kill All Might. No way. No way. No, the man-child was cut off by an annoyed Izuku who slammed his fist into his face, completely knocking the hand on his face off as it slammed into the villain's face. Shigaraki was sent flying before crashing into the ground as he continued to tumble and roll before coming to a stop. As he got up, anyone could tell how badly damaged he was. His clothes were badly damaged, several of the hand around his body thrown off and broken, but the worst was definitely his face. It was at this point Tamura lost what little patience he had and ran straight toward Izuku, who, while still in his Spinosaurus form, gave a rather awful shark-like smirk as the Decayer didn't realize something. Izuku's room ability was still activated. Quickly turning his arm into a cleaver, dodging the strike, Izuku quickly brought the cleaver down in a striking motion, while Shigaraki could only continue to speed forward, unable to stop himself. Tamura finally came to a stop and began to check himself over any injury, never noticing Izuku picking up a couple of rocks. Upon finding no injury, he was about to mock the brat when he noticed something, or rather something missing, as his hand were missing. Frantically looking around for the only way to activate his quirk, he finally spotted them on the ground a few meters away. Tamura practically flew toward them, but right before he could reach them, they suddenly disappeared, only leaving a couple of rocks in their place. Shigaraki could only stand there and try to process what just happened when he heard a whistle. Turning toward the source, he found Izuku standing there casually holding Tamura's hands in his own. Before he could even move, Izuku tossed them into the air, used the Nomu to cut them into pieces before using the Castle ability to keep them out of the villain's reach. That was the last straw, as Izuku could practically hear the snap that came from Shigaraki as he made what was essentially a death sentence run as he ran straight, to Izuku shocked when he was able to actually hit his arm before a malicious grin grew on his face as he tried to activate his quirk with the stumps on his arm to decay the brat into nothing, only for noting to happen as Shigaraki could only stare at the confirmation that he had lost his quirk. Before Tamura could begin to comprehend this, he was sent flying by Izuku, who had turned his cleaver neck into a hand, punched Shigaraki in the gut, sending him flying before using Shave to appear in front of him and hitting him with a lariat empowered by the cage fruit as he rocketed to the ground. And as Izuku landed and the dust cleared, Shigaraki was completely entrapped in steel bindings. Well, looks like we're done here. Izuku, still in his hybrid form, smirked as he threw Shigaraki over his shoulder and began to head towards the exit, where he sensed some of his classmates along with the warping BSDRD to help capture him and drop a Tamura before he went to go help the others. Shigaraki's mind was in turmoil. Nothing has gone the way it should have today. He was captured, so many of his bones were broken, his quirk was gone, and his Nomu was weight. How could he have forgotten? And Nomu, come here and kill this BSDRD. And when you're done, kill every brat here. Shigaraki shrieked, causing Izuku to drop the man-child with a thud to make sure he still had his hearing, and a couple of seconds later the bird was back, and once he was close enough, unleashed a barrage on Fist on Izuku, which were easily dodged thanks to his haki and instincts from his Dino form. Having enough, he powered up one for all and covered his fists and legs in haki before slamming a right hook in the monster's face, sending him flying with Izuku, following right after him. Grabbing the monster's leg, he slammed it into the ground, causing Nomu to bounce back up in recoil, and before Nomu could hit the ground, Izuku, sending a full power to the monster's gut, sending him soaring into air. Izuku watched as the beast went crashing through the roof, though Izuku was a little surprised and worried when he saw the barrier around the building. Izuku watched as Nomu hit the barrier and proceeded to burst into flames and screech in pain as it fell to the earth below, and its cries died out. Turning to Tamura as Izuku finally turned off all his abilities and reverted to normal, he saw the man just lying there still captured and broken, staring at where Nomu had once been. Seeing this, Izuku let a smirk come to his face that was supposed to kill All Might. Good grief, you're not giving the man enough credit. Just as he was going to pick the villain up, his haki flared to life, and he jumped back just as an annoying, familiar purple mist appeared. Luckily this time, Izuku knew exactly where to aim to make sure he hit his target and knew the perfect move to ensure he would stay down, and wasted no time in activating it as a white blur shot from his hand. Tamura, seeing Kurogiri here, knew he was safe and turned to the brat to gloat, never seeing the white blur go through Kurogiri and start to continually rotate through him as it took the form of a wheel as the ability started to activate. "Well, looks like you lose, brat," the man-child bragged, still not noticing what's going on with his teammate. "Kurogiri, get us out of here." Today was awful, but he could at least take this brat's victory from him. "I am sorry, Tamura Shigaraki, but I," from the tone of the usually reserved man, Shigaraki finally realized something was wrong, and he rolled to see what the problem was, and his eyes widened even more when he saw, "I want to die and be reincarnated as a clam." Kurogiri exclaimed as he was on his hands, as what looked to be a ghost circle through him. "Negative hollow," the DM brat said as Izuku crouched down next to him as what appeared to be ghosts with little faces appeared in his hand. "They make dealing with annoyances so much easier, and with my negative hollow, well, it goes on for as long as I need. Here, have a taste." And before Shigaraki could do anything, he soon joined the warp user in the land of negativity. "Well, that's the end of that," Izuku muttered just as he heard a cry of Deku, and tuned to see Bakugo flying toward him, and a little behind him the rest of his classmates with Sato and Shoji carrying 13 and Aizawa. A second later, Bakugo arrived and was pissed to say the least. "Deku, who the hell do you think you are? Taking on a main boss and leavening the rest of us with fodder." All Izuku did was shrug. "Should have been faster," Izuku told him before heading over to the others while Bakugo's shock and rage. After making sure everyone was fine, which with the exception of Aizawa and 13, they began to discuss how to take down the barrier. Just before the students could go out and hunt the villain who was in control of the barrier, down Izuku's haki flared to life and suddenly went into the battle stance. The class, seeing this, grew nervous. "Hey Izuku, what's Achiko?" started before she was interrupted by Izuku. "Everyone, battle positions. We're not done," Izuku said, deathly serious. Everyone started to freak out at this point. "Midoriya, what is the prob dash?" Ojiro started to question, only for it to die in his throat as his and everyone else's eyes widened in fear. "Villains. Every villain from every zone has appeared. From the ones Todoroki froze, to the ones Kaminari electrocuted, even the ones Aizawa knocked out were back up and ready for revenge." What do we do?" Toru stuttered as the others looked nervous and scared. Even Bakugo and Todoroki looked nervous. They had to use a lot of energy taking care of the villains the first time, and now they were basically back at square one. Izuku was silent before walking over to where 13 and Aizawa were, and before anyone could question what he was doing, he grabbed them from Sato and Shoji and threw them into the castle ability. Of course, this brought on a lot of protest and questions that he quickly stopped with a glare. "And just what the hell were they going to do, huh? Both were injured and unconscious, and there was a chance a villain could get past us and kill them. This is for the best." Izuku finished with the class, reluctantly agreeing. So what do? Try and hold them until help arrives. With a barrier that could be rather difficult. Ida exclaimed with worry that was mirrored by the rest of the class. Izuku could only sigh. Good grief, you people are overthinking it. We don't need to hold them back. We just need to win. At their disbelieving looks and outcries, Izuku was beginning to get annoyed. For God's sakes, we're trying to become heroes, aren't we? This stopped their protest as Izuku continued to speak using one of his size-based abilities to grow. Stopping villains, dealing with natural disasters, rescuing hostages, these are all things we're going to have to deal with as heroes. This kind of situation is going to be a regular occurrence for us in a few years, so I see no reason to freak out about this. We're trying to become the people who can do what others cannot. So I ask you, can you do this or can't you? Izuku finished as he grew to a full 22 feet. If you want to reference, Whitebeard was 21 feet 10 inches. So he's a couple of inches taller than Whitebeard. Throughout his speech, the class thought hard about his words and asked the question that he posed. Can they do this? They were silent until let's do it. Shoto said as he got ready to launch ice at whatever came close. Yeah, let's show these punks how real men fight. Kirishima shouted, pumped up, not noticing the weird looks he was getting from some of the girls. I guess there's really nothing else we can do. Momo said, resigned to fighting, as she created weapons for some of the class with less battle-oriented quirks, such as Mineta and Koda. Luckily, Jiraiya, Denki, and herself still had their weapons. I guess we have no choice, Siro said with an uneasy smile, but ready to fight with Sato and Shoji nodding in agreement. We just ought to kill them all. Needless to say, Bakugo was ready to go. I'll show them how fabulous I dash. Let's do it. Aoyama began only to get interrupted by a pumped Mina. I mean, we have no choice, really. Kyoko muttered, holding her weapon from earlier, while also plugging her earphone jacks into the amps on her boots. If we stick together, we can definitely win. Uraraka said with a determination as Tsuyu let out a ribbit and nodded. Fate looks unkindly on these villains today. Tokoyami muttered darkly as Dark Shadow threw in its 2 cents. Let's kick their butt. With Koda, while still somewhat shaking in fear, tightened his grip on the weapon Momo gave him ready to defend his new friends. DM in it, DM in it, DM in it. How the hell did this happen? Why is happening to us? Mineta cried, gripping the pole Momo gave him so hard it might break. Dicky bent down beside him. Come on, man. We got to do what we got to do. Besides, think about how popular you'd be with the girls if they heard you helped stop a villain invasion. So what do you say for the girls? Denki asked, raising up his own weapon. Mineta stood silent for a moment before bringing up his staff and clanged it against Denki's for the girls, causing Denki to grin. If we're going to be heroes, might as well start big. Ojiro stated, earning, From Toru. Come on, Class 1, and let's show these villains the true meaning of heroes. Ida shouted with more passion than ever. Izuku, seeing this, looked down as a grin appeared on his face. See what happens when amateurs like you try to start something. You get your butt kicked. Izuku said to the still-trapped Kirojiri and Shigaraki. Turning back to the villains who seemed ready to go, Izuku opened a hatch on his right hand that was connected to the armory and pulled out a bicento equal to his size. Izuku took one final glance back at his classmates. You ready? All he got back was nods of determination and looks of resolve. Even Bakugo was silent, looking like he was just waiting for the signal to start. A signal Izuku was more than ready to give as he raised his left arm, curled his hand into a fist, and punched forward. Suddenly, blue cracks appeared in the air that confused the villains for a second before many of them were blasted backward by an unseen force. And with that, the battle began. It was complete chaos. Todoroki and Bakugo each went on a one-man rampage as they tried to take down as many villains as possible before the side effects of their quirks took over, such as Todoroki getting frostbite from overusing his ice, and Bakugo straining his wrist to much after his gauntlets were destroyed by a villain with a rusting quirk. Others, while teaming up, did face their own set of problems. Momo created a cannon with capture gel and was able to capture a good number of them, but the lipids in her body ran out, and she had to resort to using the staff. Uraraka and Tsu teamed up as Ochako used her quirk to send villains flying, and Tsu grabbed them with her tongue, slamming them into each other, knocking most of them out. And if that didn't work, the fall from when Ochako released her quirk. However, after a while, Uraraka's stomach gave out, and Tsu's tongue got scared by a knife when she was distracted by Uraraka. Tenya, Ojiro, and Toru used some hit and run tactics. Ida used his engines while Ojiro used his tail to knock out most of their opponents, while Toru added any last needed touches. Though Ojiro and Tenya had to make sure not to hit Toru, and there were some that were made of stronger stuff and were able to injure all three. Siro, Mineta, and Mina used their quirks to create traps, such as Siro using his tape to lasso up the villains by the bunches, though that could only last so long before the pain for firing it became too much, and he had to pick up a weapon a villain dropped. Mineta and Mina faced similar problems. Mineta frantically threw ball after ball at his opponents before frantically knocking them out with his staff. He had to stop eventually, or he would lose to much BLD from his scalp, so he opted to run around the battlefield, and if he saw any villain getting up, he would bonk them on the head and back into unconsciousness. Mina was able to use her acid take down villains by either throwing acid onto the floor to either trip the villains, allowing her to slam them, then in the head, or throw a low-quality bit of acid onto the villains. Nothing dangerous, just enough for it to sting and get them distracted enough for her to nail them. Kirishima, Sato, and Aoyama made a pretty good team, all things considered. They were able to make up for each other's weaknesses somewhat, with Kirishima and Sato able to keep the villains off Aoyama, who uses laser as a form of crowd control. However, things weren't perfect, as due to their time lengths, there were a few moments where all three were unable to use their quirks, resulting in reviving some injuries. Tokoyami and Jairu proved to be a pretty good team, as Dark Shadow was able to knock the majority of thugs away, with Jairu and her amp being able to repel any who got too close. Shoji, Denki, and Koda weren't have that good of time. Denki knew for multiple reasons he couldn't use his indiscriminate charge bolt, so he had resigned himself in using the staff in his hands. Koda was in the same boat, as there were no animals around to help. Shoji knew he had to take up the main force of the team, and he did just that, though it did result in him losing multiple duplicates of his arms. So yeah, they were by far having the most trouble. They were surviving. Izuku, through all this, was either swinging his Bisento to scatter the villains or launching tremors at villains after making sure his friends were out of range. He was launching more quakes, then swinging his weapon for a couple of reasons. The first was that there was a chance it could hit the one created the barrier, knocking him out, therefore causing the barrier to fall. The second was to alert the staff. If they had no idea something was wrong and haven't seen the barrier, this should at least alert them something was wrong. No one knew how long they had been fighting or if anyone was coming to help them. No matter how injured they got or how many. Villains kept coming. The students of Class 1A realized something. They were winning. It was from the subtle way the faces of the villains got more worried, how they started to become more cautious and concerned, like their spurts were just about broken. They just needed a little push, and that's exactly what they got. In a moment where Izuku got distracted for a single second, but that was all the villains needed, as dozens of them leapt at the giant, some nailing them with bullets, others impaling him with knives and swords, and finally one nailed him in the face with an explosive round, covering his face in smoke as he began to fall backward, much to the horror of his classmates. Izuku screamed Momo, Kyoka, Tsu, Mina, and Ochako Midoriya, shouted Todoroki, Tokoyami, Shoji, Kaminari, and Ida Deku. Roar Bakugu as he and the rest of class ran to help him, when suddenly they heard a roar of "Stay back," causing them all to stop. All anyone could do was stare at the raw power one man could wield. Class 1A was staring in complete awe. Dude, are we actually seeing this? Denki stuttered, with Kirishima just staring in awe at what had to be one of the manliest he's ever seen. So this is the power of the strongest man in the world. Tokoyami muttered, with most of the class just staring, with the exception of Bakugu, just gritted his teeth and clenched his fist in anger at the clear display of the distance between them. The villains didn't know what to do, and who could blame them? What could they do against such power? A villain suddenly dropped to his knees. "We can't win," catching the others' attention. "Let's just give up. We can't do anything anyway." He continued blankly with a dead look in his eye. Suddenly, he was grabbed by a four-armed villain. What the hell are you taking about? They're just a bunch of brats. Who cares about Akuma? We'll just kill him with the rest of the brats. He yelled with spit flying. The first man just continued to stare blankly. And how do we do that? We've all seen Akuma on TV, and now the kind of power he has. I don't even think we can kill him if he's alone, plus there's an entire class with him. We can't win. He finished. The four-armed man growled as he looked around to see if there was anyone still willing to fight, but all he saw were the defeated faces of the remaining villains, and then let out a defeated cry of Demin it, before falling to his knees. So is it over? Momo asked cautiously, but also hopefully. I think so. Izuku, can you detect anyone else here? Ribbit. So you asked with Izuku, shaking his head no. Seeing this, Denki let a shaky smile come to his face. Titian, that means only be cut off by Mina, who screamed, "We won." That broke the floodgates, as everyone to cheer. We did it. I can't believe it. We actually villains. Did you see us back? That we totally rocked. You guys totally kicked our butts. No hard feelings, right though? Hey, thanks, man. Denki said with a carefree smile before his and everyone else's mind registered what was said, and their heads snapped to the source of the voice. Hi, I'm Toby. The now named Toby said before he screamed as Izuku, Bakugu, and Todoroki flew toward him right to crush the final villain, only for the villains to go right through him and slam into each other. As the three were getting up, Toby jumped back and landed before with his hands on his hips like he didn't have a care in the world. Is he playing us? Is he the true mastermind? Is that why he's so calm? Izuku thought, worried, which were further increased at the fact he went right through him. These concerns, however, were put to bed by what Toby said next. I thought I was going to die. Did he hear that right? BSDRD. Don't act so big and talk SHD like that. Apparently he had, as Bakugo roared at him, causing Toby to scream and hold his hands up. I'm sorry. I'm just here to pick up my friends. Toby cried, and Izuku was confused. Pick up his dash. Izuku's eyes widened when he realized Toby was standing right next to Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Well, I think it's time to leave those pros outside. Should have the barrier down. Just about. Bang. Now, Toby said as everyone heard the gunshot and the barrier falling a few seconds later. Well, it's been fun, but I really got to grab my friends and leave, so until next time, bye. And before anyone could react, Toby grabbed Shigaraki and Kurogiri before seemingly warped into himself before disappearing, leaving no trace on any of the trio behind. The class weren't given time to think, as a split second later the doors were blasted in and a cry was heard, "Have no fear." Why? Because we are. The words died in All Might's throat as he and the rest of the teachers took in the surroundings. The villains defeated. The USJ a mess. The students were all injured from basic cuts and scrapes to some bleeding quite badly. As All Might scanned, finished looking over the damage, his eyes fell to his successor, who, to All Might's surprise, looked the most injured from what looks like cuts to bullet wounds. Izuku was also looking around from the teachers, taking in and making sure the villains were going to be arrested, to his fellow students, who all shared the same relived yet tired and somewhat resentful looks they had on their faces, and Izuku was sure he had the same look on his face. Spotting Recovery Girl, he made a beeline for here, and before she could even ask, he brought 13 and Aizawa out, and upon seeing them, Recovery Girl went right to work to try and stabilize them. It was then that he was approached by All Might, and after everything that just happened, Izuku could only say one thing: you're late. Maybe this one. Hell no, we've got to go with this. That's the strong dumbass. Don't be such a stick in the mud. Come out, everyone, we'll figure this out. We better. Let's get back to it. Izuku groaned as he woke up to the same thing he had been for the last 2 days. Always arguing, always trying to decide something. Izuku couldn't figure out anything. Not who they were or what they were trying to decide on. In fact, the only thing Izuku did figure out is that there were at least 7 of them. Izuku remembered the first time he heard the voices. Flashback Class 1. It just got out of the USJ, and the first thing they noticed was the man lying on the ground, bleeding from what looked like a bullet wound. Hey, do you think this is the guy who created the barrier? He looks kind of plain. Achiko questioned, as some like Siro and Mina did indeed look like a common thug. Hey, you're right. Yeah, hard to believe that a guy like this has such a powerful quirk. Meanwhile, some of the more cynical students looked around and couldn't help but take in the damage, or rather lack of thereof. No property damage, no piles of body, no signs of battle, just on villain, and if how he's dressed is any indication, just a thug at that. Well, I guess that confirms it then. Hyoko muttered darkly as to Shoto, Izuku, Mizo Fumikage, and Katsuki nodded, their faces showing no reaction as the others looked confused. How are you guys talking about? What's confirmed? Toru asked, confused. It means the teachers really did just get here, Mizo said, quietly causing the rest to look down. But, I mean, communications were down, so it's possible Denki tried only to be cut off by Fumikage. They could have still seen the barrier quite easily from a school, and even if they didn't, they would have known something was wrong when the communication and cameras went offline. Tokoyami finished not wanting to hear any excuses. Well, they could have had to find a guy, right? That could have taken some time. Uraraka tried, desperately trying to find anything to defend their teachers. Does that dumbass look like he's smart enough to do that? Bakugu snarled at her while pointing to the down villain. Besides, they had Hound Dog with him. The mutt could have easily tracked him. The rest of the class, who finally accept what their darker-minded classmates told them, could only bow in silence. Izuku, who chose to keep quiet through this, was about to say something when he felt a small itch from the inside of his head. So which one should we go with? Personally, I like the lighting one. Yeah, we're not going with that. This string one is perfect. No need to argue. We have plenty to go through. Izuku, are you okay? You've been staring out into space for a while. Uraraka asked, concerned. Izuku merely nodded as he and Uraraka walked toward the arriving police. Flashback, and it's been going on like that for 2 days, and although it's annoying Izuku wasn't worried, it was probably just some scraps of memories leaking out since that happened occasionally. Besides, he had bigger problems to deal with than some voices in his head, Izuku thought as he finished getting ready for school and leaving his room just in time to hear a news report. The hero killer stain strikes again, leaving another 3 pro heroes dead, bringing his tally up to around 60. Police informed us Izuku tuned the rest of the story out while thinking about the man in question. Stain, the hero killer, has been a problem for the last few months, leaving many heroes apparently 60 dead and many more crippled. However, that wasn't the worst part in Izuku's opinion. The worst part was what the surviving heroes said about their encounters. It's like he knew what I was going to do before I did it. No matter what I hit him with, I couldn't hurt him like he was wearing some kind of armor, and his attacks were a lot more powerful than they should have been. It felt like I was hit with this force that made me want to submit, and I could fight it no matter how hard I tried. Izuku's BLD ran cold when he heard this. Because Izuku dim in well what these 3 skills could be describing, but it was terrifying to think about. But it couldn't be his quirk, as that's rumored to be BLD related. So Izuku was forced to accept the horrible truth. Stain, the hero killer, had haki. Izuku had no way of proving this, but there was no other way in his mind. Besides, it's not like haki is sorely his. Anyone can unlock the colors of observation and armament, and it looks like Stain was like him, bring the 1 in a million to have conquers as well. Diamin. This meant there were only a handful of people who could actually beat him, Izuku included. Even if Izuku came across the hero killer, then he'd have to be extremely cautious, as the villain had the one thing that could render any defense his devil fruits gave him worthless. Izuku was cut off from his thoughts as he felt a tug coming from his breathe. Leg looking down, he saw Eri, who looked terrified at the prospect of him running into the villain. Smiling softly, Izuku bent down and rubbed her head soothingly. Don't worry, Eri, he won't get me. I'm the strongest in the world after all. Eri looked at him and nodded, gaining a look of determination on her face, fully convinced her brother won't lose. Izuku, seeing this, felt his smile grow inch as he and his sister went to eat breakfast. So it was time to head to you. And after bidding his sister and mother goodbye, he left. It didn't take long to arrive, and Izuku soon found himself back in his classroom. Given they were given the day after the USJ off, there was only thing they were discussing. So, did anyone see the news last night? Toru asked hesitantly, with most of the class nodding. Well, I mean, it was kind of cool how we got a few seconds of screen time, right? I mean, I guess we could be considered celebrities, right? Surviving such a big deal. Denki awkwardly asked with Kirishima slowly nodding. Please, the media doesn't give a DMN about us. The only thing they care about is how villains infiltrated a hero school, and the staff was too incompetent to do anything. Kyoka hissed with a scowl. She has a point. Zero began. I mean, look around, we can't exactly say it was something people should expect from first years. The tape user pointed out that with the exception of Izuku, everyone had some kind of injury, even Bakugo and Todoroki. The only reason Izuku doesn't have any injuries is because of his Devil Fruit's regeneration abilities. Come on, guys, can we please stop talking about this? Mineta pleaded with Bakugo hissing at him to shut up, much more subdued than he normally would. Still, though, I'm glad we had you there, Midoriya. I don't want to think about what would happen if you weren't there. Sato said with the rest of the class, agreeing, though Bakugo did it silently. Izuku just waved it off, saying he was happy to help. Soon it was time for class to begin, and the class was wondering who was going to sub for Aizawa, when to their surprise the man in question stepped through the door. When questioned, the man merely said his health wasn't a factor and proceeded to start class. Though privately Aizawa did share some of his students' anger, finding it completely illogical and incompetent of teachers, fully licensed heroes, at that to not realize something was wrong despite all the signs. Anyway, you shouldn't let your guards down. The fight isn't over yet. More villains. The class, though, with most of them ready to activate their quirks. It's time for a sports festival. Aizawa finished. Don't scare us like that. The class shouted, though they were relieved. Oh hell yeah, I'm fired up. Kirishima yelled, ready to kick some butt. Wait a minute, dude. Kaminari said, bringing the red head down to earth. Are we seriously doing this right after an invasion? Kyoka asked, annoyed at how light of the situation the school was making of this. Yeah, what's stopping the villains from doing this again? Ojiro asked, concerned. Apparently the school wants to do this to show the public the crisis has passed. Aizawa spoke, pissed at how the school was trying to sweep the incident that nearly cost 2 pro heroes and an entire class of heroes in training under the rug. Besides, from what I'm told, they're beefing up security this year with pro heroes from all over. Aizawa explained. Mineta still wasn't convinced. Are we really going to having some stupid festival right after a villain attack? Izuku turned to him. You do know how important this is, right, Mineta? He questioned, with the grape-haired boy nodding in confirmation. Our sports festival is one of the most viewed televised events in the world, second only to the Battle Towers World Championship, Aizawa explained. From there, Aizawa went on to explain how pros from all over the country would be watching, and it would be the prefect chance to get scouted. And there were 3 chances in their lifetime to show off what they could do. After class was dismissed, the students talked about how pumped they were for the festival, with Uraraka seemingly possessed. Izuku could understand where they were coming from. He had the look they had many times growing up. After that, Izuku and Ida asked Uraraka something that's been on their mind for a while. Why she wanted to be a hero. To their surprise, she was in it for the money. She went on to explain she wanted to help support her family, who owned a struggling construction company. By the end of it, Tenya was in tears and clapping while praising her for her kind heart, and Izuku told her it was a truly noble goal. Ha ha ha! Young Midoriya is here. All Might shouted as he suddenly appeared around the corner. Oh, it's All Might. Uraraka said, surprised, while Ida gave a polite greeting while Izuku just nodded. All Might, seeing these reactions, mentally sighed. He wasn't arrogant or anything, but seeing these only slightly surprised showed how far he's fallen in their eyes and is a reminder of his failure. Shaking his head, All Might spoke again. Young Midoriya, I was wondering if you could join me for lunch. There's some things I want to talk to you about. The number 1 hero requested. Izuku turned toward his 2 shocked friends and asked if they minded, to which both shocked their heads. Seeing this, Izuku followed the number 1 hero while Uraraka and Ida went to the cafeteria. Cafeteria? So what do you think All Might wanted to ask with Izuku? Uraraka questioned, with Ida taking a thinking pose, not knowing someone was listening in. Well, it could have something to do with that bird villain Midoriya fought at the USJ. You remember the villain covered in hands said it was designed to kill All Might. He was probably just asking Izuku about him. It could also do with the fact that parts of Izuku's quirk seem a lot like All Might's quirk. Maybe that caused All Might to take a liking to him. He truly is lucky. Tinya exclaimed with Ochako nodding in agreement. All Might and Izuku Midoriya. Is there a connection? Shoto Todoroki thought as he listened in while trying to figure out the mystery. With Izuku and All Might, the two had just entered an empty room and sat as All Might prepared some tea while both were trying to figure out what to say to each other. In the end, it was Izuku who broke the ice. So you're looking better in a not about to die of starvation kinda or way. Izuku spoke as he looked at Toshinori in his powered-down form. Although unlike when they met nearly a year ago, he wasn't a skeleton thin with sunken eyes. Instead, he had a body very similar to Izuku. All Might grinned. Yeah, well, after you heal my injury, I didn't waste any time in getting back into shape. It's gotten to the point I can use one for all as long as I wish. All Might finished happily that he could get the most out of Quirk for the remaining time he had it. Izuku nodded. So what did you want to talk about? Izuku asked, causing All Might to frown about what he was about to say. All Might took a deep breath before speaking. I nor the rest of the staff have any excuse for what happened at the USJ. We truly failed as heroes that day. Young Midoriya, I can't apologize shut up. 2 simple words, but they were so cold that it gave Toshinori pause as he looked into Izuku's eyes and was actually taken back by the fury in Izuku's eyes. I'm not the one you and the teachers should be apologizing to. I would have been fine on my own. It's my classmates you should be apologizing toward. They don't have any experience fighting people like I do, and could have been seriously tortured if not killed. Izuku growled, causing All Might to lower his head in shame, but Izuku wasn't done yet. But you know what really pisses me off the most? The fact that the staff here seems more concerned with their own reputations than the fact that 20 students and 2 almost died. In fact, isn't that why the sports festival is being held so soon to make people forget about you? AZF up. Izuku took a breath to calm down before saying his last piece on the subject. When I first accepted this power, I told you of my problem with today's heroes that only seem concerned with money and fame, but you promised me there were genuine heroes still out there who became heroes for the right reasons. That relit the fire in my soul to be a hero. But the only heroes I've seen like that are 13 Sensei and Aizawa Sensei. So don't offer any apologizes or promises that it won't happen again. We don't want to hear it. Instead, let your actions speak for you. Through it All Might was silent, knowing his successor was right. The staff failed and are trying to cover it up, so they don't seem as incompetent. President Mike even suggested that they say the teachers arrived and took R of the villains and saved the students at the meeting they had to discuss what to do. This earned him a broken nose and black eye from an enraged Aizawa, who threatened to go to the media and tell them everything that happened. The staff was shocked to see him there, and when questioned why he wasn't resting, his response shut everyone up. And why the hell would I trust you with my students? The meeting pretty much ended after that with the threat clear in everyone's mind. So is that all you wanted, or was there something else? Izuku questioned, changing the subject, with All Might shaking his head. What's your plan for the sports festival? All Might questioned with Izuku raising an eyebrow. To win, obviously. Izuku said, simply with All Might nodding. I want you to think of this sports festival as your debut. Pros not to mention, the whole county will be watching. You're known around the world as the strongest man in the world, but I want you to think of this sports festival as your debut as a hero. To say to the world, I am here, as the future #1 hero. All Might finished dramatically and seriously. Sure. Izuku spoke calmly while drinking his tea, causing All Might to fall over in shock. I was expecting a little more of a response. All Might said, annoyed that his speech is being taken so lightly. Izuku just rolled his eyes. Good grief, you're taking this too seriously. I was planning on winning anyway, so it's not like it matters. Besides, remember what I said about actions speaking for you. Izuku spoke with a grin, causing All Might to grin in response. Yeah, I get it. I'm sure you'll win. All Might spoke with Izuku nodding and getting up to leave. Right, well, if that's all, I'll be off. Toshinori nodded. Of course, young Midor trailed off as his eyes widened in shock as he remembered something important. So important, he actually went into his hero form. Wait, young Midoriya. I have something to tell you that's very important. It involves the next step in making one for all your own. Izuku stopped and turned around. All Might was only truly serious about a couple of things, and one of them was one for all. So what is it I'm still having those problems with OFA, right? Izuku questioned with All Might nodding, having managed to calm down enough to exit his hero form. Yes, however, I'm sure you're ready for this next step. It could actually be considered your rite of passage. The mark of one for all truly becoming yours. All Might told Izuku, who found himself nervously swallowing a lump in his throat. Okay, and that is? Izuku asked, both nervous and excited. Tashinori looked his successor dead in the eyes. Young Midoriya, you must choose your Smash theme. All Might finished in his hero form. Izuku's face was the flattest All Might had ever seen it, with a slight eyebrow twitch every so often. Goodbye, the student said simply as he got up to head to the exit, causing the pro to panic and tell him to stay. Listen, young Midoriya, it might seem pointless, but everyone who has had this quirk has come it. Nana did it, as did her predecessors before her. It's something that means something to you, like how I named mine after certain states from the U.S. that means something to me. So please take this seriously. All Might finished. Izuku, seeing the look in his teacher's eyes, merely sighed and nodded before leaving a happy All Might behind. After class, so something I can help you people with? Izuku asked dryly at the horde of people in front of their classroom door. The students outside were shocked. There were rumors and sightings of Akuma being here, but most just chalked it up to a transformation quirk. So most were shocked and more than a little intimidated to see him there. So the rumors are true. The world champion does go to UA. A tired voice spoke out, with crowd parting to reveal a boy with purple hair and bags under his eyes. I'm Shinso Hitoshi from General Studies. The now named Shinso spoke. Izuku Midoriya. It's a pleasure, Izuku said as he held out his hand, to which Shinso shocked as a small smile came to his face. Likewise, it's nice to know not everyone in the hero course is full of themselves, Shinso told him. And don't worry about it. That's just Bakugu. Izuku responded, which earned a "Fu Deku" from said explosion user. Ignoring this, Izuku continued. So what can we do for you? Izuku asked, causing Shinso to chuckle. Oh, nothing. Just came by to offer my declaration on war. Shinso finished, shocking everyone, but Izuku, who figured it was something like that. See, I wanted to be in the hero course, but I failed the entrance exam and had to settle for general studies. However, this is my second chance. If I perform well enough, I'll be transferred to the hero course. Of course, that means someone would have to be transferred out. So be prepared. Shinso finished, with some of his classmates freaking out slightly. Now, that is interesting. And you're not wrong. If you outperform someone in the hero course, you deserve to take their place. Izuku spoke, surprising everyone there. However, you're making one fatal mistake. Izuku warned him, causing Shinso to raise his eyebrow. Oh, and what would that be? He questioned while Izuku grew a smirk on his face. You're underestimating us, Izuku told him, when suddenly someone else decided to enter the conversation. Hey, I am Tetsu from Class 1B, and we heard you guys fought some villains. Is that true? Tetsu yelled as he appeared. He had sliver hair, sharp teeth, and bone fragments around his eyes. Suddenly, everyone in Class 1 gained a certain steel in their eyes as they turned their attention to Tetsu, who, along with everyone else, took a step back when they saw it. Yeah, man, it's true. What about it? Kirishima asked with an edge to his voice. JJJ, just don't get cocky and think you're better than us. Tetsu stuttered. Even you, Akuma. Noted, Izuku said simply as he and the rest of his class left, each thinking about how to train for the sports festival. Time skip. 2 weeks, it was the day of the sports festival, and Izuku could say he was ready, as he and the rest of his class had been training their bodies, minds, and quirks to hell and back to prepare. Izuku himself had spent every waking moment he could in the fight pit at the battle tower, a never-ending free for all where fighters could come and go as they pleased. It was the perfect place to brush up on techniques and a few devil fruits he was a little rusty with. Right now, he was getting ready to head to the school. Inko was telling him she would record the whole thing in HD, and Eri was running around shouting that he was going to win. Suddenly, Izuku's haki picked up 3 signatures heading toward their apartment, causing him to grin as he recognized them. He got up to open the door as the 3 arrived. "Good to see you, Amanda, Dabi, Toga," as he greeted the 3 at the door. Dabi and Toga were a couple of friends of his from the battle towers, and were actually 2 of the ones who guarded Eri and his mother the night of the raid on Overhaul. Dabi was a fighter on the 200th floor. He could easily go higher, but due to his sadistic side, he stayed because he liked crushing newbies. Toga wasn't a fighter, but an employee who was part of the punishment force. If someone cheated or tried to weasel out of their gambling debts, it was the punishment force's job to deal with them. Izuku. Toga suddenly launched herself at Izuku with a knife in her hand. Izuku didn't even blink as he suddenly caught her wrist and twisted the knife out of it before placing the knife down. "Hello, Toga," Izuku said as he put a pouting Toga down. Inko, having gotten used to this over the years, didn't even blink as he greeted her guest. "Hello, Toga dear, Dabi," she greeted pleasantly before her expression went flat. "Amanda," she finished dryly towards the woman dating her son despite her age. Toga responded by giving Inko, while shouting a greeting, while Dabi just waved while muttering a thanks for having him. Amanda, meanwhile, gave Izuku a peck on the cheek, causing Inko's eyebrow to twitch. "Mr. Dabi, Ms. Amanda." Eri greeted the 2, while tackling Dabi in a hug, who fumbled to center her despite the fact the little girl did this every time she saw him after meeting and taking an immediate liking to the 2. "What about me, Eri?" Toga questioned, only to receive a tch from Eri as she walked away after Dabi set her down. Eri never liked Toga after meeting her, from her creepy personality to the fact she kept trying to cut Izuku every time Toga saw him. Eri also ignored the fact that Dabi had a worse personality and tried to do much worse to Izuku when spared, something Toga brought up regularly. Toga could only sulk with Dabi, snickering slightly before going to help Inko out with any snacks she was preparing for her guest despite her protest. "So where's the old man? I thought he was coming here," Izuku asked his manger. He said he wanted to go watch in person. Said he could give any criticism he had in person and as they came to him. This caused Izuku to pinch the bridge of his nose in annoyance while muttering naturally before heading for the door, though not before Amanda, saying she had something to discuss with him later. "Well, guys, it's time. Wish me luck," Izuku said, with each doing just that. He was just out of the door when he heard Dabi speak. "Hey, Izuku." Izuku stopped and turned eyebrow raised. Dabi grinned, kicked some butt. Izuku smirked and nodded as he left. At UA, the school was packed to the walls as civilians, reporters, and heroes alike ready to see one of the biggest events in the world. The students would have been swarmed, but luckily they were led in a different way. But they did get a good look at the main entrance. Izuku winced when he saw some of the merchandise he endorsed, as well as his memorabilia were selling very well. In fact, he saw MT Lady buying a ton of it. Momo, Tenya, and Ochako, who he met at the entrance, were trying to snap him out of his funk when his haki picked up an insanely powerful energy flying toward him. Izuku had just enough time to cross his arms before the energy force slammed into him, sending skidding back and dust to kick up, blocking the attacker from view. The remaining 3 were shocked for a second before snapping out of it and assuming battle stances. Though before they could do anything, they heard Izuku speak. "Do you mean it, old man? What the hell is wrong with you?" Izuku growled, showing no sign of damage or injury aside from sown dust. "Ha ha ha. Please, I had to make sure spending all this time playing hero hasn't made you soft. Besides, as your trainer and your grandpa, I reserve the right to attack you whenever I want." The man in the dust spoke as the dust cleared and the attacker finally came into view. "It's GERP the Fist." Momo, Tenya, and Ochako shouted shocked to see this legend here. He was once held the title as strongest man in the world, the very title Izuku now holds. He was also known to regularly help out heroes. One of the most recent and well-known is when he saved the pro hero team, known as Water Hose, and breaking nearly every bone in the villain's body with a cinch punch. "Sir, it is an honor to meet you." Tenya bowed, with Momo and Ochako doing the same with Garp, just laughing it off. "Aha! Thank you, it's always nice to meet my grandson's friends." He grinned with the three, becoming shocked at the grandson comment, having missed it the first time. He's not my real grandfather. He trained me from when I was a kid, but that's it. Anything else he says is just him losing what will mind he has left. Izuku shot down, which earned him another punch from an enraged Garp. Cheeky brat. I trained you the same way I would train any son or grandson I had. Therefore you are my grandson. He shouted with Izuku's friends, just sweat dropping at the logic. Izuku just grunted. Anyway, old man, grandpa. Whatever anyway, why are you here? Amanda told me what you told her, but I'm not buying it. Izuku questioned with Garp, letting out another laugh. Figure me out, did you, boy? Well, you're right. I'm hoping to run into a friend of mine. Haven't seen him in 20 years, but I heard his son goes here, so I figured I'd come and see if I could meet him. The man laughed at the look of shock on their faces. I can't believe it. Izuku spoke with the other nodding and Garp just smiling. That is until Izuku spoke next. Who could put up with you long enough to be considered a friend? He asked with genuine confusion. Brat. Garp roared at him, trying to punch him again. This time, though, Garp hit smoke as he went right through Izuku. Well, that's enough comedy for one day, Izuku said as he turned to his classmates, ignoring the old man, who kept trying to punch him. Come on, we need to get ready. Izuku spoke toward his friends, who after a brief pause followed behind him, leaving behind angry Garp. Disrespectful brat, talking to his own grandpa like that. He took a deep breath before grinning. Whatever. Time to go find a matchstick locker room. It was time. They were all dressed in their gym clothes and waiting to be called. Mina complained that she wanted to wear her costume, but Ojiro explained it was to keep things fair. Suddenly, Tenya entered and told everyone it was time to go. However, just before Izuku could lead the class out, Todoroki stepped in front of Izuku, which caused him to raise an eyebrow. Need something, Todoroki? Todoroki was silent for a moment before speaking. Midoriya, I think it goes without you outclass me in every field, but I will find a way to beat you. Todoroki finished with a glare. Oh, what's this? Zero asked with a grin. Is our second strongest declaring war on the champ. Izuku chuckled. Challenge accepted, but a word of warning. Izuku said seriously as he narrowed his eyes at the half and half. Come at me with your full power, or else you'll be wasting everyone's time. Izuku spoke seriously. Come on, guys. Kirishima spoke up with an uneasy smile. I think you're underestimating a little too much. The hardening Quirk user spoke. I'm not here to make friends. Todoroki finished, causing Izuku to sigh before leading his class to the stadium. Welcome everyone to the UA Sports Festival. I'm your host, Present Mike, and are you ready for this? Present Mike stated while trying to hype up the crowd, and judging from the cheers, it was working. First up, they're no strangers to danger from the Hero Course Class 1A. He introduced getting cheers from the crowd, which only went up drastically when they saw Izuku leading the class. Different crowd, same atmosphere. It never changes. Izuku muttered while Tenya was talking about being able to perform well while being observed like this. While Kirishima was pumping himself up and Katsuki just smirked ready to win. Next, they may not have had as much time in the spotlight, but they're still chock full of talent. Also from the Hero Course Class 1B. After that, it's General Studies C, D, E, Support Class F, G, H, and finally Business Lesson I, G, K. Present Mike finished his introduction while also introducing the latter three courses quickly and dismissively, pissing off the courses and Izuku for how biased the teacher was. It's time for the introduction speech. Spoke a female voice said, which turned out to be Midnight, the R-rated hero and umpire for the first years, causing many people to cheer and say how lucky the first years were. Someone should say something to Midnight Sensei about what she's wearing. Kirishima spoke. Yet that outfit should definitely come with a warning. Kamari said, is that really appropriate attire for a high school game? Tokoimi questioned. Silence everyone. Midnight ordered. Now for the student pledge, we have Izuku Midoriya. She yelled, causing everyone to cheer and Izuku to become incredibly annoyed. I guess it makes sense you did place force in the hero course. Zero said, just say what's on your mind. Tenya advised as Izuku grunted and made his way to the platform. Here you go. Midnight said to him with a wink as she handed him the microphone. Izuku took it while ignoring the wink, causing her to pout. I'll keep this brief. A minute ago, Present Mike introduced all the first-year classes, and the way he was so dismissive of the non-hero courses really pissed me off. Izuku stated shocking pretty much everyone there except Garp, who was grinning in anticipation at the verbal, but kicking Izuku was about to give out. Let me ask everyone here a question. Can anyone here in a single word describe every student here, myself included? Because I know the perfect word that I can use to describe every student here. The word is rival. This caused everyone's eyes, from the students to the spectators, teachers, and pro-heroes, to widen in shock and surprise. I see students from every course, from hero to general studies, ready to give everything they have to win. With that alone, I'm more than happy and honored to call them my rivals. And when someone, a teacher, no less dismisses a rival of mine so easily, it really pisses me off. Izuku's speech was met with pure silence, even as he handed the microphone back to Midnight, who looked lost in thought. However, the second he reached the steps, the stadium erupted in a deafening roar of cheers and applause. Kirishima and Tenya were moved to tears by his speech, with Kirishima bawling about how manly it was, while Tenya was going on how he was honored to have so many rivals. The rest of the class, while not as inspired as those two, were ready to show what they were capable of. Unknown to Class 1A, almost every other student was feeling pumped along with rethinking their thoughts of Class 1A. Through all this, Present Mike was muttering apologies into his microphone with promises not to do it again. A wonderful speech, and with that, it's time to begin the first round. Midnight proclaimed as the randomizer started spinning. Soon it stopped, with the first event being an obstacle course around the stadium, with the only rule being don't leave the course. This is it, Izuku thought as he got into position at the starting line. Time to show the world you are here. All Might thought from the stands as the first light faded. Ready. Do your best, Izuku. Inko mutters at her home while waiting with bated breath with Dabi, Toga, and Amanda. Set. Let's do this, Izuku thought as the last light faded. Go. The sports festival had begun. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Had Powers of All Devil Fruits. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to CamDog2 for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on Wattpad for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.